Chapter 28:14, What should they do? 3. Since that's the case, I won't be polite. Ice Spirit said with a smile. You're welcome. Among these people, whoever you like, just take it. We have no objections. Dongfang Yu pointed at Mu Duo and the rest maliciously and said to Ice Soul as if there was no one else around. Listening to the two of them seemingly distributing who they belonged to, Mu Duo and the others were extremely depressed. That. You guys may not have any objections, but they do. He had quite a lot of opinions. Miss Leng, we are here to solve the problem. After some thought, Mu Duo spoke to Leng Ruoxue. Are you sure? Leng Ruoxue blinked her beautiful eyes, clearly not believing his words. Mu Duo was depressed. He thought in his heart, what's there to be uncertain about? I thought you came in a group to eat ice chi. Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly. It was obvious that she had touched a sore spot. Her words had successfully angered Ice Soul, the old Qilin who had been promoted to a father of 24 filial piety. Feeling the incomparably heavy pressure beside him, Mu Duo really wanted to cry. Miss Leng, can you not be like this? They were here to solve the problem, not to eat the Kirin. One had to know that even if he was given 100 guts, he would not dare to eat a Qilin. Unfortunately, Leng Ruoxue did not want to give him a chance to explain. She only said to Ice Soul, Senior, you can take away those who want to eat ice chi. Leave the rest to me. All right. Ice Spirit replied happily. The two of them had finished splitting the loot. As for the people of the Dark Family Alliance, they didn't know what to think. In the end, no one knew how Ice Spirit picked, but he actually picked all the people from the Hong family. The rest of the people stared at Leng Ruoxue and the others, but at the same time, they were rejoicing in their hearts. It was a good thing he didn't go crazy with Vice Alliance Master Hong. Otherwise, they would have been one of the people who had been taken away. That was close. That was really close. Although only Mu Duo and Deputy Alliance Master Yen knew about Bing Jia and his son's identity, it didn't affect their fear of Bing Pa. On the contrary, they weren't that afraid of Leng Ruoxue. This was also largely due to Leng Ruoxue not displaying her true strength, and the fact that Leng Ruoxue didn't seem to mind at all. The people who were left behind heaved a sigh of relief and made an inviting gesture with a smile. Following that, the remaining members of the Dark Clan Alliance were all led to the living room. As soon as they sat down, they heard a shrill scream. Immediately, the faces of the Dark Association's members turned pale, and their timid bodies began to tremble. This voice belonged to Vice Alliance Master Hong. Why was he screaming so miserably? They didn't even dare to imagine what kind of treatment Vice Alliance Master Hong had received, and no one dared to stand up for him. Leng Ruoxue observed the sudden change in the expressions of the people from the Dark Alliance. She smiled evilly and comforted them, everyone, don't be nervous. It'll be fine. As long as you don't have any ideas about Bing Yao, I will ensure your safety. Of course, the premise is that you don't provoke me. Otherwise, no one can protect you. In addition, the sound insulation here is not very good, so please be understanding and bear with it. Endure. Can you endure it? They couldn't pretend not to hear the screams even if they wanted to. Furthermore, they understood Leng Ruoxue's words. She was warning them to behave themselves and not to resist. In reality, even if Leng Ruoxue didn't say so, the members of the Dark Association who had witnessed Ice Spirit's strength didn't have the slightest intention of going against her. Right now, they only wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. Sob. This place was too scary. They wanted to go home. Originally, they had come here personally for Jiao Yu and Hong Village, but now that Vice Alliance Master Hong had fallen into their trap again due to a moment of impulse, it was obvious that they had no intention of returning her to them. More importantly, they didn't dare to ask Leng Ruoxue for her. Otherwise, if they angered her, they might not be able to leave Demon City alive. With this thought in mind, an elder stood up immediately. He didn't care about the presence of Mu Duo and Deputy Alliance Master Yen and said directly, Miss Leng, we're here for Jiaoyue and Hong Village, but now that Vice Alliance Master Hong is gone, I don't think we need to stand up for them anymore. Let the Hong family solve their own problems. Our alliance won't participate in this. So, may we leave now? He didn't want to stay here any longer. Leave? Wasn't the purpose of your alliance to help each other? Now that Vice Alliance leader Hong's family is in trouble, you want to stay out of it. Is that okay? Hearing this, Leng Ruoxue asked with a faint smile. Ah. Although the aim of our Dark Family Alliance is for the families to help each other, there's a premise. We have to be reasonable. It's obvious that Vice Alliance leader Hong and the others are at fault in this matter, so we can't help them. After thinking for a moment, the elder said in a righteous manner. His words resonated with all the elders present. Seeing the elders of the Dark Clan Alliance nodding their heads, Leng Ruoxue smiled and asked, if I'm not mistaken, the meaning of your Dark Family Alliance is that there's someone to blame, and there's someone to blame for the debt. Whoever offends us, well, look for them, right? That's right. The elder nodded with all his might. Thanks, I understand. Leng Ruoxue understood. She then looked at Uncle Long and the rest and asked, Uncle Long, Godfather, what do you think? You wish. If the Dark Family Alliance wants to stay out of this, they'll have to see if we agree. After all, Princess Jiaoyue and the others represent the Dark Family Alliance. If it wasn't for your Dark Family Alliance's name, we wouldn't have let them in. Hearing Leng Ruoxue's question, Master Ning was enraged. Then, he glanced at Mu Duo and added, by the way, I'll tell you guys something. Back then, Princess Jiaoyue said that after she took over Demon City, she wanted me and Uncle Long to guard the gate for her. Mu Duo and the others were silent. No one knew Uncle Long, but who didn't know Master Ning? You actually want the head of the Ning family, the leader of the 8 divine regions, to guard your door? Is your door guard that precious? These words, no one present dared to even think about it, but Jiao Yu had actually said it. Damn it! Who gave you the guts? For a moment, the silent Dark Family Alliance members were all furious. In fact, they didn't know the details of Master Ning's words. Now that they heard it with their own ears, they were shocked. This, Mu Duo stammered for a long time and still couldn't say a complete sentence. The cold sweat in his heart was even more dripping down. It seemed that this matter was not going to be resolved peacefully. Don't say that. Your Jiaoyue also said that Senior Ice Soul and the others should serve her well. If they serve her well, she will be rewarded. Uncle Long also laughed evilly. Jiaoyue wasn't from their family, okay? Mu Duo, who couldn't say anything, felt wronged and the expression on his face dimmed a little. Today, he was afraid that he would be in deep trouble. Mu Duo, who was particularly uneasy, no longer wanted to defend himself. He felt that no matter what he said, he would not be able to appease the other party's anger. In that case, why should he make a meaningless struggle? Mu Duo, who had given up on resisting, immediately became listless. He lowered his head in dejection and didn't say a word. The people of the Dark Alliance were at a loss when they saw this. Woo-woo, what should they do? The members of the Dark Alliance, led by Mu Duo, were all at a loss. At this time, painful howls continued to enter their ears, scaring them even more. Leng Ruoxue knew that it was not a good idea to continue like this. Leng Ruoxue couldn't stand people looking like they were on the verge of death. She didn't feel any sense of accomplishment when dealing with such an opponent. Thus, in her frustration, Leng Ruoxue waved her hand and said to Mu Duo and the rest in disdain, as if she was chasing away flies, all of you can leave. I'll send someone to pay for our emotional damage later. Hearing the heavenly amnesty, the people from the Dark Family Alliance were so excited that they did not even bother to ask Leng Ruoxue about the mental damage compensation. They ran out of the room without any hesitation. Until they returned to the Dark Family Alliance, Mu Duo and the others still felt that everything was particularly unreal. Could it be that they had a dream before? When they saw the list of compensation that Leng Ruoxue had sent their beastie to deliver to them, Mu Duo and the rest suddenly realized that they were not dreaming. All of this was real. The Dark Family Alliance was also going to pay a huge price for the Hong family. Sob. Looking at the mental damage compensation on the list, Mu Duo and Deputy Alliance Master Yen were extremely sad. Mu Duo felt even more remorseful. Originally, he had agreed with Deputy Alliance Master Hong's suggestion to let Jiao Yue and Hong Siyuan accompany Cuihua to Demon City. He had also intended to use Leng Ruoxue to get rid of the Hong family. But now, he felt that he had shot himself in the foot by acting on his own initiative. Because he had also paid the price for it. This price was enough to make his heart ache. Alliance Master, what should we do now? Vice Alliance Leader Yen asked, slightly flustered. What else can we do? Compensate. Mu Duo helplessly sighed. But some of the elders in the alliance won't agree. Deputy Alliance Master Yen reminded. Is this up to them? Mu Duo raised his eyebrows and said. We can't let them do as they please. Vice Alliance Leader Yen said dejectedly. After that, the two of them passed down their opinions, and as expected, it caused a commotion among the elders. Immediately, an elder went to find Mu Duo and Deputy Alliance Master Yen, clearly expressing that their families wouldn't compensate a single cent for the Hong family's matter. They would go to whoever caused this trouble and wouldn't implicate the innocent. Chapter 28:15, I Have a Father. 1. The clear attitude of some of the elders made Mu Duo quite worried. In fact, he also wanted to say this to the Hong family, but he was the alliance leader. If these words were to be spread, the Hong family would definitely make up stories about him. In addition, it was also possible that some families that were close to the Hong family would feel that he was not being honest as the alliance master. One must know that when he told Leng Ruoxue that what Vice Alliance Master Hong did was his own doing and had nothing to do with the Dark Family Alliance, it had already made some elders unhappy. Therefore, he must not say this again. But if he didn't say it, he wouldn't be able to explain it to the family that was strongly against the alliance paying for Vice Alliance Master Hong's actions. What was this good? Mu Duo was extremely conflicted in his heart. As Mu Duo's loyal subordinate, although Deputy Alliance Master Yen was well aware of Mu Duo's dilemma, he didn't know how to help the Alliance Master get out of her current predicament. At this moment, the two biggest leaders of the Dark Family Alliance became silent. The two of them locked themselves in the room, deep in thought. Suddenly, there was the sound of hurried footsteps outside the door, and then someone shouted, Alliance Master, Vice Alliance Master, bad news. What's wrong? Upon hearing this, the two of them immediately opened the door and looked at the guard who was panting heavily at the door. The elders are fighting with the Hong family. Before he could stand still, the guard, who was sweating profusely, hurriedly said. They started fighting. The two of them looked at each other and then calmed down. It's good to fight. The two of them were worried about how to explain this to the Hong family. Now that there was an elder fighting with the Hong family, it saved them the trouble of talking. More importantly, the two of them were not in a hurry to go out and settle the dispute. Instead, they pulled the guard over and asked about his well-being, which scared the guard so much that he was at a loss. In the end, the two of them consoled the guard and told him to go back to his room to rest. Then, with a bang, they closed the door in front of the guard. The guard looked at this scene in a daze for a long time before he turned around and left. In the room, Deputy Alliance Master Yen looked at Mu Duo, who was much calmer than him, and the admiration in his heart was like a surging river, endless. He even felt that she was worthy of being the Alliance Master. He was even calmer in such a situation. Alliance Master, when are we going out to settle the Hong family and the elders' matter? Deputy Alliance Master Yen was not as calm as Mu Duo, so he asked curiously. What's the hurry? Let them fight to their heart's content first. Mu Duo laughed evilly. Then what if someone is too heavy-handed and can't clean up after the death? Vice Alliance Leader Yen said worriedly. Thanks, we can't rule out that possibility, but even so, we have to stay calm. Mu Duo touched his chin and said after thinking for a while. Ah. Vice Alliance leader Yen was depressed. How could he remain calm when he knew that this was a possibility? However, the truth was that this alliance master Mu Duo was indeed unnaturally calm. When the two of them felt that it was about time and went out to settle the conflict, Deputy Alliance Master Yen was surprised to find that the matter was not as serious as he had thought. Or it could be said that the Hong family's combat power was too weak, and they were subdued by the family of the elders in a few moves. Faced with the possibility of a one-sided battle, Deputy Alliance leader Yen didn't know what to do. It was definitely impossible to side with the Hong family, but it didn't seem right to side with the elders either. After some thought, he decided to wait and see. In any case, he thought that he was not the alliance master and did not need to rush to stand out. However, it was not so easy for Mu Duo to be a bystander. However, it was a good thing that Mu Duo didn't intend to back down. Therefore, after seeing the scene in front of him, he immediately pulled a long face and angrily said, "Can someone explain to me what's going on? Alliance Master, it's all because of them. They insisted that our Hong family bear Leng Ruoxu's psychological damage alone. They're really bullying us." A very embarrassed elder of the Hong family saw Mu Duo ask like this and immediately pointed to the other elders who were also bruised and swollen and complained. "This should be your Hong family's compensation. This matter was caused by your Hong family. Why should we take the blame for you?" Faced with the Hong family's elders' accusation, the accused party retorted, unwilling to be outdone. "How can this be considered as taking the blame? Aren't we an alliance? When one family is in trouble, shouldn't the 8 sides send help?" A certain elder of the Hong family said matter-of-factly. "Bah! Who said it should be? When we formed the alliance, we agreed that we would do things our own way and help each other if there was a problem. But the premise of this problem is that we can't take the initiative to cause trouble. Otherwise, if someone were to rely on the Dark Family Alliance to make powerful enemies everywhere, wouldn't all of us be implicated?" Elder Feng explained. Most of the elders present nodded in agreement. However, the elder of the Hong family was clearly not happy when he heard this. However, he didn't dare to offend these fiendish elders. After all, the Hong family had offended Leng Ruoxue, and several members of the Hong family had fallen into her hands. He was still waiting for the alliance to come out and save them. Therefore, in the face of these accusations, he didn't dare to be too harsh with his words except to argue a little. Then, he turned his head and looked at Mu Duo. Tears quickly welled up in his eyes and he said in a choked voice, "Alliance Master, you have to find a way to save Vice Alliance Master Hong." "How?" Mu Duo asked indifferently. "Ah." The elder of the Hong family was at a loss for words. He didn't expect Mu Duo to ask this question at all. He naively thought that after hearing his question, Mu Duo should have patted his chest and promised that he would definitely bring the person back safely. But now, how was he supposed to answer this question? "Yup. First Elder Hong, how do we save him?" An elder asked, gloating. The first elder of the Hong family was extremely embarrassed. After thinking for a while, he said, "This matter shall be decided by the Alliance Master." "I decide." "Are you sure?" Mu Duo asked with a smile. "Of course, you're the leader of the Dark Family Alliance. It's best for you to make the decision." The first elder of the Hong family hurriedly said. "If that's the case, I might as well tell you that I'm afraid we can't save Vice Alliance Master Hong. The young master of your Hong family can succeed to the throne," Mu Duo suggested with a sincere expression. However, his words made the first elder of the Hong family furious. At this moment, he couldn't care less about his status as the leader of the Mudwa Alliance. He roared, "Mu Duo, how can you say that? I know that you don't like our family head, but no matter how much you don't like him, we're still in the alliance. If you didn't say you would save him, how could you curse him? Why, you've really gone too far. I'll definitely report this to the ancestor. I believe that the ancestor will definitely take care of the patriarch." "As you wish." When Mu Duo heard that the other party was going to complain to his ancestor, he didn't stop him at all. It just so happened that he also had something to say to his ancestor. Seeing Mu Duo's uncaring expression, the head elder of the Hong family left in anger. Chapter 28:16, I have a father, too. After he left, Deputy Alliance leader Yen and a portion of the elders looked at Mu Duo worriedly. If the Yen clan's old ancestor came out of seclusion, this matter would probably become even more lively. Everyone knew that the old man from the Yen family was the most protective and unreasonable. The Alliance master was probably not his match. Why are you guys looking at me? Is the Yen clan the only clan with an ancestor? Mu Duo was rendered speechless by the worry on their faces, so he could only joke with a smile. That's right. Deputy Alliance leader Yen and the elders were enlightened. They also had an ancestor at home. Why was he so frightened by the Hong family's first elder's words? However, it was also fortunate that Mu Duo had reminded them. Otherwise, they really wouldn't have thought of disturbing their own ancestor. But now, if the Hong family's ancestor came out of seclusion, the other ancestors would definitely have to inform them. Otherwise, they would be too passive. With this thought in mind, the people led by Mu Duo all moved. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue and the rest were still unaware that the Dark Family Alliance was about to make a big move because of the Hong family's capture. Half a month later, Leng Ruoxue and the others received another report from the Silver Rats that an unknown faction was heading towards Demon City in an aggressive manner. This time, the Silver Rats didn't ask to be sniped. Instead, they had a depressed and resentful expression on their faces. Out of curiosity, Leng Ruoxue could not help but ask for the reason. When she learned that the Silver Rats did not ask to be sniped because the person who came this time was a little strong, she smiled. Why are these little things so cute? After learning that this was the reason, Leng Ruoxue consoled the Silver Rats who had glass hearts. Then, she brought Uncle Long and the others to wait for the unknown faction to arrive. Even though it was said to be an unknown faction, Leng Ruoxue knew that it must be the people from the Dark Clan Alliance. This time, the other party probably came with ill intentions. It had to be said that Leng Ruoxue was right. This time, the Dark Family Alliance had really come with ill intentions. In order to show off their strength, they had wanted to give Leng Ruoxue a taste of their power outside of Demon City's defensive forest. The one who took the lead to show off his horse's might was the Hong family's greatest ancestor. He led the Hong family members and lined up at the entrance of the forest. Then, with his order, countless divine powers were released from the hands of the Hong family members. Seeing this scene, the Yen family's ancestor, who was watching from the side, nudged the Mu family's ancestor beside him with a worried look. Old man Mu, will this be okay? It'd be a wonder if he's fine. The ancestor of the Mu family said calmly. Should we stop them? The Yen clan's ancestor asked with uncertainty. To be honest, he didn't want to stop them. Who asked their Yen family and the Hong family to be enemies? He couldn't wait to see old man Hong suffer. Can you stop it? The ancestor of the Mu family said helplessly. After he came out of seclusion, he heard Mu Duo talk about what had happened recently. At that time, he only had one feeling, and that was that the Hong family was courting death. And this time, no one would be able to help the Hong family. In addition, he had also heard Mu Duo talk about Leng Ruoxue. Compared to watching the Hong family make a fool of themselves, he was obviously more interested in Leng Ruoxue. Alright. Let's just watch the fun. After hearing the Mu clan's ancestor say this, the Yen clan's ancestor didn't care anymore and found a place to sit down. After an unknown amount of time, the Hong family's attack did not seem to have any effect at all. The forest was still undamaged, and not even a single leaf fell from the trees. Such a scene made the old ancestor of the Hong family a little anxious. Musheng, Yen Ting, hurry up and help. The old ancestor of the Hong family roared at the two of them, but the two of them only returned him a faint smile. It was obvious that neither of them had any intention of helping the other. Thanks, you guys, come quickly. Seeing that the two of them were not moving, the old ancestor of the Hong family continued to roar. Flood! Don't waste your energy, there's clearly a formation here, no matter how much Shen power you use it will be of no use. Yen Ting helplessly reminded. Yes, the formations here are very advanced. I'm afraid even if we use all of our Shen power, we will not be able to do anything. Mu Xing said. Damn it. Why didn't you guys say so earlier? The old ancestor of the Hong family roared. TSK. Did you even give us a chance to speak? Yen Ting rolled his eyes at the old ancestor of the Hong family. All right. He had to admit that he was a little anxious. What do we do now? The old ancestor of the Hong family thought that he was able to adapt to circumstances. Therefore, after shouting at the other party, he could also put down his face and ask for the other party's opinion. Cold mix. Mu Duo replied. No. We have to go in quickly. If we delay any longer, the children will suffer more. The old ancestor of the Hong family said anxiously. In the face of the Hong family's ancestors' eagerness, neither Mu Xing nor Yen Ting had the heart to tell him that it had been so long. Those children in his family had probably suffered all the hardships they should have. Therefore, it shouldn't be too much of a delay. Mu Duo, haven't you been here before? Please lead the way. With a light sigh, Mu Xing turned around and instructed Mu Duo. Everyone had the heart to love their son. Although he didn't really like the old man from the Hong family, he couldn't deny the love he had for his own child, and this made him feel the same. Mu Duo nodded and led the way into the protection forest outside Demon City. At the same time, Leng Ruoxue and the rest could see the other party's every move through the screen in the courtyard. Shuer, they're here. Master Ning said with an evil smile. AI. I haven't seen these old friends for a long time. Uncle Long sighed. Uncle Long, do you know them? Leng Ruoxue asked in surprise. It seemed like some of the people who had come this time were old Gus acquaintances. I know a few. Uncle Long said with a smile. Then I'll have them come in quickly. Leng Ruoxue asked with anticipation. Yes. Uncle Long nodded. He knew that without Shue'er's help, those people would have been lost in the forest. Not long after, Mu Duo and the others, who were already in a sorry state, were led by the silver rats to the Leng family's main residence. When he saw Leng Ruoxue, Mu Duo immediately burst into tears. This forest was too much of a bully. He had clearly walked this path before, but this time, he was still lost. He felt so embarrassed. When Leng Ruoxue saw Mu Duo, she smiled and asked, Alliance Master Mu, have you brought the emotional damages? Never in his dreams would Mu Duo have thought that this would be the first thing Leng Ruoxue would say when she saw him. This made him at a loss. Normally speaking, shouldn't they exchange pleasantries first and be polite? Who would directly ask about money? You didn't bring it. Seeing that the other party was in a daze, Leng Ruoxue blinked her eyes and made a guess. What are you doing here if you didn't bring the money? She asked in dissatisfaction. Such obvious disgust. Could it be that they couldn't come to Demon City without money? Chapter 28:17, I Have a Father, 3. Although Mu Duo really wanted to ask Leng Ruoxue this question, when he saw how she acted as if it was a matter of course, he felt that it was better for him not to find that uneasiness. Because even if he asked, it would only make him look bad. Mu Duo instantly fell silent. The old ancestor of the Hong family, who was already holding back his anger, was especially dissatisfied when he heard Leng Ruoxue's words. Little girl, your demon city has captured our people, so why are you asking us for compensation for emotional damage? I'm telling you, we won't pay you any compensation for emotional damage. On the contrary, you have to hand over the Hong family members you've captured. Otherwise, I won't let you off today. And who are you? Leng Ruoxue pretended to be confused when she saw the old man who suddenly spoke. Little girl, he's called Hong Shui, the ancestor of the Hong family. When Yen Ting heard Leng Ruoxue's words, he rushed to reply. Get lost. You're the flood. Hong Sui. The old ancestor of the Hong clan shouted at Yen Ting. Immediately, Yen Ting shrunk his neck and took a step back without saying anything. I don't care if you're the flood or Hong Sui. I just want to know, how are you going to deal with us? Leng Ruoxue laughed. Hong Sui was stunned. Why is it not over? He had never thought about it. In reality, he was only trying to scare Leng Ruoxue. He had thought that a little girl would be scared and obediently hand over the Hong family. Who knew that it was different from what he had imagined? Not only was she not afraid, she even asked him what he wanted to do. Hong Sui, who had never thought of how to answer, frowned. At this moment, he heard Leng Ruoxue continue, I only want money, not my life. Of course, if you don't want to end things with us, we'll keep you company until the end. This was the rhythm of a fight. Mu Sheng and the others thought at the same time. After that, they heard Leng Ruoxue's words as they wished, you guys also want to have a fight with me? It wasn't he. Feeling Leng Ruoxue's open attitude, everyone took a few steps back in worry. They wanted to put some distance between them and Hong Sui so that this little girl wouldn't misunderstand. However, they retreated a little too late. Leng Ruoxue stood in the middle and said in a magnanimous tone, come on. Whoever goes first, I'll take them on. Could he not be like this? Mu Sheng and the rest thought to themselves. In reality, other than the aggressive Hong family members, no one else had come to fight Leng Ruoxue. They were more of onlookers, but now, Leng Ruoxue had clearly included them in her plans. This was really unpleasant. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue saw that no one had any reaction, so she could only call out the names personally. You go first. Beckoning with her finger, Leng Ruoxue stared at an old man. As far as she knew, this old man was the first elder of the Hong family, so she had used him as an example. When the first elder of the Hong family heard Leng Ruoxue's words, he said indignantly, what an ignorant little girl. Today, I'll let you know how powerful I am. As soon as he finished speaking, the first elder of the Hong family turned into a shooting star and flew out in an unknown direction before he could even get into a fighting stance. It was Leng Ruoxue's kick. Seeing this, the members of the Dark Clan Alliance were terrified. This was truly too terrifying. One should know that the first elder of the Hong family was not weak. At least on the surface, he was stronger than Leng Ruoxue. Even so, he was still sent flying by a kick from Leng Ruoxue. And it was before anyone could react. After he suddenly came to his senses, Hong Sui was so angry that he was about to explode. What a bold little girl. In front of him, he actually dared to attack the Hong family. He was really tired of living. In that instant, Hong Sui attacked Leng Ruoxue without thinking. On the other hand, Leng Ruoxue dodged it unhurriedly. She smiled provocatively and said, you're not done with me. Come on. Little Xue, can you let me have this person? At this moment, Bing Yao's voice rang in Leng Ruoxue's ears. Following that, a tiny icy blue figure landed in Leng Ruoxue's arms. At this moment, there was an even more petite, snow-white cat on top of the ice phoenix's head. Seeing Bing Yi's appearance, Mu Duo's mouth twitched uncomfortably. Then, he quietly sent a message to remind his ancestor. After hearing this, Mu Sheng couldn't wait to look at Bing Yao. Little Bing Bing, can you beat him? At this moment, Leng Ruoxue looked at Bing Yao and asked worriedly. So what if I can't win? I have a father. Bing Yao said proudly. When Leng Ruoxue heard Bing Yao announce this good news so proudly, her forehead was filled with black lines. This was an era of competing for a father. Indeed, no one could afford to offend Bing Yao, who had a strong backing. Leng Ruoxue looked at Hong Sui sympathetically, then let go of the ice armor and quietly withdrew from the battle. Thanks when Hong Sui saw that Leng Ruoxue had left just like that, the anger in his heart instantly rose by a few more degrees. He raised his voice and shouted at Leng Ruoxue, damned girl, you're scared, so you let out little reserved life? Leng Ruoxue was speechless, and her sympathy for Hong Sui increased. As for Hong Sui, he was confused by Leng Ruox's gaze. More importantly, the other party's gaze made him extremely uncomfortable. However, Leng Ruoxue didn't want to explain too much. Anyway, Hong Sui would realize how serious of a mistake he had made in a while. But now, Hong Sui obviously didn't realize it. Seeing that Leng Ruoxue was ignoring him, Hong Sui's gaze could only turn back to Bing Yao as he roared fiercely, "Little Qiansheng, since your master let you out, he'll let you know my power. You're the little save life. Your whole family is. Also, little Xue is not my master." Bing Yao indifferently replied. Detestable. Hearing that the little dog in front of him actually dared to scold him, Hong Sui's anger rose again. Then, he raised his hand and was ready to teach Bing Yao a lesson. Who knew that Bing Yao would remain calm and unflustered, and repeat the same process as before, shouting in a clear and melodious voice, "Father! Someone is going to kill your son again. Help me. Come out now, or you won't be able to see your cute son again." This familiar scene made Mu Duo and the other members of the Dark Alliance who had seen it before feel speechless. More importantly, they knew what was going to happen next, so they couldn't bear to look at this scene. As expected, the ice spirit fell from the sky as Bing Yao said. Ice Soul held the baby egg in his arms, squinted his blue eyes and questioned, "You're the one who wanted to kill my son?" Upon hearing this, Hong Sui was stunned. He didn't expect the other party's father to come out as soon as he was called. Moreover, this father's strength seemed to be above his. Hong Sui was a little conflicted. What should he do now? Are you deaf or mute? Ice Spirit asked again impatiently when the man did not answer. He could accompany his son to play the game of competing for a father, but he had no interest in being silly with others. "Father, don't worry. He's not deaf or mute." Bing Yao laughed evilly as he reported. Hearing this, Hong Sui became even more depressed. If he still couldn't tell that this little dog was playing with him, he would have lived all these years in vain. "So you're looking down on me?" Ice Spirit continued to cooperate with Ice Phoenix. Hong Sui was completely speechless. He hadn't even said anything yet. "All right. Father, he must be looking down on you. Furthermore, from what I know, he's here to avenge the members of the Hong family who were captured. He's not done with us." Bing Yao continued to provoke. "The Hong family? Revenge? Are you still not done?" Ice Spirit asked indifferently. Then, he suddenly raised his chi and said, "Come on. I'm not done with you. Father, I suggest that we strike first. Otherwise, if he finds out that the Hong family was captured by you, we will be in deep trouble. So, we have to act quickly before he finds out." Bing Yao laughed evilly. After hearing this, whether it was Leng Ruox's side or the Dark Family Alliance's side, they were all speechless and didn't know what to say. Then, everyone's sympathetic gazes focused on Hong Sui. He was clearly teasing the silly boy. When Hong Sui heard Bing Yao's words, he immediately narrowed his eyes in anger and questioned, "The Hong family was captured by you and your father?" "Not bad." Ice Spirit nodded. Bing Yao, on the other hand, exclaimed in surprise, "Father! What should we do now that he has discovered us?" Glancing at Bing Yao, Leng Ruoxue wiped the cold sweat from her forehead and thought to herself, "Bing Yao, I overdid it." However, Bing Yao clearly didn't care if the act had gone too far. Instead, she displayed a look of panic, which made Leng Ruoxue even more speechless. However, Bing Yi's filial father felt that his child was cute no matter how he looked at him. Touching the Ice Phoenix's fur, Ice Soul consoled, "Don't be afraid, Father is here." "All right. Father is here." For people who didn't know how to pamper their children, there was no reason at all. At this moment, Hong Sui, who saw that he was being ignored, couldn't help but jump out to make his presence known. He shouted, "You're so bold, you actually dare to capture our Hong family. Hurry up and hand over the Hong family, and I can spare your lives." "He's dead." Glancing at Hong Sui indifferently, Ice Soul coolly spat out 2 words. Dead? What's dead? Hong Sui asked in a daze, not quite understanding. So stupid, of course my father is saying that the person who was caught in your Hong family is already dead. Bing Yao explained on behalf of her father, who was a man of few words. The Hong family is dead? Upon hearing this, Hong Sui's anger could no longer be suppressed. However, he did not completely lose his mind in his anger. Then, he turned to Mu Sheng and the others and shouted, Demon City has killed the people of the Dark Alliance, and we will not rest until they are dead. Everyone, attack. Exterminate them. Chapter 28:18 Who's bullying who? 1. Hong Sui's words were rather imposing, but the people of the Dark Clan Alliance did not dare to act rashly upon hearing them. One should know that the aura and pressure that Ice Spirit gave them was not something that Hong Sui could stir up. More importantly, Mu Sheng, the head of the Dark Clan Alliance, did not make a move, so these small fries naturally did not dare to act on their own. Seeing that no one responded to his words, Hong Sui's anger instantly began to rise again. Then, he angrily shouted, my words don't work anymore. You guys hurry up and destroy Demon City to avenge our Dark Family Alliance. But who knew that after he shouted, no one dared to step forward. Everyone thought in unison that the hatred of the Hong family's ancestor was not just big. Was Demon City that easy to destroy? The people present who were rather familiar with Demon City's strength looked at Hong Sui with extremely complicated feelings. They could not help but think to themselves, although the ancestor of the Hong family was also a famous expert many years ago, the many years of closed-door cultivation has clearly turned him silly. As a result, he is completely unable to understand the current situation in the divine realm. Otherwise, he would not have said such words. As the saying goes, the waves behind push the waves before. The current God world was no longer the God world that he was active in. Leng Ruoxue, the turbulent wave behind, had completely smacked Hong Sui, the wave in front, to death on the beach. You want to destroy them? In your dreams. None of the people present were fools, so they naturally wouldn't go crazy with Hong Sui. More importantly, this had nothing to do with their respective families, so no one would be so loyal as to offend Demon City for the Hong family, who was courting death. Of course, everyone was well aware that Hong Sui was most likely deceived by his own descendants. Otherwise, he would not be so impulsive as to want to destroy Demon City. Destroy. If you can destroy it, do it. But please don't implicate them. A few families who were not on good terms with the Hong family gloated in their hearts. They could not wait for Hong Sui to clash with Leng Ruoxue and the rest. In this way, he could get rid of this thorn in his side through the hands of others. From this, it could be seen that even though the Hong family was a part of the Dark Family Alliance, they were not well liked. Musheng, Yen Ting, are you just going to watch my Hong family get bullied? Seeing that the crowd still did not move, Hong Sui angrily shouted at Mu Sheng and Yen Ting. Mu Sheng was helpless. As the founder of the Dark Family Alliance, he couldn't just sit by and watch, but this. Was it really the Hong family that was being bullied? I don't think so. As for Yen Ting, he simply turned his head and ignored Hong Sui's words. The two of them didn't see eye to eye with each other, so it was only natural for him to hit them when they were down. And he didn't have any sense of belonging to the Hong family, and even had the idea of helping an outsider. Hong Sui also knew that he could not count on Yen Ting among the two, but Mu Sheng could not ignore him. Therefore, he placed his main target on Mu Sheng and took the initiative to play the emotional card. Mu Sheng, we've been working together for so many years, and you've watched those children grow up. Do you really have the heart to see them being bullied by outsiders? If word of this gets out, how will our Dark Family Alliance stand in the Divine Realm? What a huge hat! Was this considered a summary? Mu Sheng didn't speak, only looking at Hong Sui quietly. Upon seeing this, Hong Sui became anxious. Just as he was about to say something, he suddenly heard a mocking voice. Hong family's kid, we have to find out who's the one who's bullying who. Thanks. Uncle Long strode out of the cubicle behind the living room. Originally, he didn't intend to show himself now. He wanted to wait for the dust to settle and Senior Ice Soul to vent his hatred before coming out. Who knew that Hong Sui words were really too much for him to bear? Look at how he said it, as if his own family's younger generation was the victim. In fact, if there was a victim, it should be their side, right? As for the Hong family, it could only be said that they were not strong enough and had kicked an iron plate, which was why they were unlucky. When Hong Sui heard this familiar voice, he looked in the direction of the voice. When he saw Uncle Long, his eyes widened, and his face was filled with disbelief. What about me? Are you pretending not to know me? Uncle Long laughed. What are you doing here? Hong Sui could not help but ask. This is my home, of course I have to be here. Uncle Long said indifferently. Then, he used his eyes to greet Mu Sheng and the other people he was familiar with. After that, he focused on dealing with Hong Sui. Hong Sui did not expect to hear Uncle Long say that. His eyes instantly widened, and he asked with a face of disbelief, shouldn't you be in the Endless Sea? It was originally. But now, I've settled down in Demon City. Haven't you heard that the Endless Sea has merged with Demon City and is now under Demon City's jurisdiction? Uncle Long asked in disbelief. This news was not considered a secret in the immortal realm. Any clan should know about it, but this old fellow actually did not hear of it. It could be seen how outdated this information channel was. Hong Sui was undoubtedly shocked by Uncle Long's words. This was no longer just a matter of the lack of information channels. He suddenly thought that with Uncle Long, who was more protective of his own and more powerful than him, he could forget about successfully avenging his revenge today. From Hong Sui's point of view, Uncle Long and the unknown man before him were his greatest opponents on the side of Demon City. Especially in this situation where he could not support it alone, it would be very difficult for him to avenge his junior. Hong Sui was instantly worried. He turned his head and looked at Mu Sheng and Yen Ting with hidden bitterness. If these two people had helped, he would still have some confidence in his heart. But now, with the appearance of Uncle Long, he knew that the idea of getting the help of those two people would probably be fruitless. Just for Uncle Dragon's sake, Mu Sheng would not attack Demon City. Hong Sui was very clear about this, and this fact made him extremely resentful. Fuck. They were clearly on the same side, but now, he could only swallow all his hatred into his stomach. This feeling of having no way to take revenge was quite uncomfortable. Uncle Dragon, it seems you plan on protecting Demon City's people? Unwilling to give up, Hong Sui still wanted to personally confirm it with Uncle Long. However, Uncle Long only smiled faintly and said, the people of Demon City don't need my protection. What? Hong Sui was shocked. He didn't hear wrongly, right? What did this old whale mean? What, you don't understand? Hong Sui. You didn't even figure anything out and you dare to come and cause trouble. I have to say, your IQ is really worrying. Uncle Long sighed and looked at Hong Sui helplessly. Hong Sui's face turned red from Uncle Long's exasperated tone. Then, he shouted at the top of his voice, who said I didn't figure it out? Your Demon City captured our Hong family, yet you're still demanding for all sorts of compensation. Now, this father and son have killed a junior of our Hong family. How can I not take revenge for this deep hatred? Chapter 28:19, Who's bullying who? 2, I can. At this moment, Ice Spirit, who had been invisible for a while, spoke calmly. You're tactful. Upon hearing Ice Spirit's words, Hong Sui gave her a satisfied look and said, so, I'm going to kill you and your father to avenge my descendants. Come on. I'll be waiting. Ice Spirit replied with a smile. Father. I'm so scared, will we be okay? Suddenly, Bing Yao interrupted. With father here, he will definitely be the one to die. Bing Pa touched the fur on Bing Yao's head to comfort his son. When Hong Sui heard this, his anger rose up again. Immediately after, Hong Sui, who had been provoked to the point of losing his mind, rushed toward the father and son without thinking. The divine power in his hands quickly gathered, and in a split second, a green ball of divine power was thrown out of Hong Sui's hands and flew directly toward the Ice Soul father and son. Uncle Long broke out in cold sweat at the sight. You won't die if you don't seek death. This time, Hong Sui was definitely beyond saving. On the other hand, Mu Sheng was unable to stop him in time and could only watch helplessly as Hong Sui faced the adult Qilin. Of course, at this moment, he still wasn't too sure of the ice spirit's identity. Otherwise, even if he didn't like Hong Sui, he would still try his best to stop him from being foolish. Unfortunately, it was too late. After Hong Sui's divine power ball was thrown out, Ice Spirit did not panic. Then, a Qilin formed from ice divine power rushed into the sky. After soaring in the air for a few rounds, the Ice Qilin directly swooped down towards Hong Sui's divine power ball. With a loud explosion, Hong Sui's ball of divine power shattered, while the Ice Qilin continued to soar in the sky unscathed. The backlash from the divine power caused Hong Sui to take a few large steps back and spit out a few mouthfuls of blood. His face was as white as paper. He looked at Bingpa as if he had seen a ghost. Then, he couldn't help but ask, who are you? This person was too strong. One had to know that the ball of divine power he had released just now was close to his full strength, but the other party not only easily caught it, but also caused him to suffer a backlash, while he himself was not even injured. Such a difference in strength caused Hong Sui to be shocked beyond words. My father is an ice spirit. After hearing Hong Sui's words, Bing Yao said with a proud expression. Ice spirit. Hong Sui savored the name and wanted to remember it forever. However, he was suddenly stunned. Ice spirit. Ice spirit. No wonder he felt that the name was familiar. Wasn't the leader of the Qilin clan called Bingpa? However, he would never believe that the handsome young man in front of him was Ice Soul. After all, according to what he knew, Ice Soul had been severely injured in the past. Without a good healing elixir, the ice spirit would not be able to stand in front of him in one piece even after tens of thousands of years. At least in terms of strength, ice spirit would definitely decline. But now, he didn't feel like ice spirit's power had decreased at all. He thought that the person might be the Qilin clan leader, but he didn't want to believe it. At this time, Mu Xing stepped forward and bowed to Ice Soul. She asked, Senior, are you the Qilin clan chief? No. Ice Spirit denied. Thanks. When Mu Xing heard this, she was stunned. Could he have made a mistake? However, Ice Spirit laughed evilly and said, the news of your dark family alliance is so outdated. Didn't you hear that the Qilin clan chief has been replaced? Mu Xing was embarrassed. Cold sweat was dripping from his body. Hearing the other party's words, he knew that the other party must be the patriarch of the Qilin clan. However, as far as he knew, the Qilin clan's patriarch had always been very serious. Why was he joking now? Mu Xing explained helplessly, we haven't received the news yet because we've been in seclusion. Oh. Then you should know by now. Speak. What do you plan to do to us? Kill me and then roast my son for meat? Ice Spirit asked. She did not even consider Mu Xing's pale and trembling body. The question of Ice Spirit made Mu Xing afraid and worried. Sob. Senior, can you not play like this? Who would dare to kill you or roast your son? It's not like he was tired of living. No, there was indeed someone who was tired of living before, but this really had nothing to do with him. Most of the people of the Dark Clan were innocent. Senior, we don't have such thoughts. After a long silence, Mu Xing could not help but ask. You don't have any? Did I make a mistake? But that Jiao Yu and your Vice Alliance leader Hong both said that they want to eat my son. Ice Spirit asked. How was he supposed to answer? Mu Xing didn't know what to do with Ice Soul's question. He couldn't help but look at Uncle Long, who returned him a smile and said, Jiao Yue also said that Master Ning and I should guard the door for her. He even planned to have some of the prettiest men in Demon City serve him well. Of course, that was after your Dark Family Alliance had taken us in. Uncle Long's words made Ice Soul's expression turn even uglier. He nodded and said, yes, she also let me serve her. Fuck. This hatred was really strong. Although he had already heard a part of what Uncle Long and Ice Soul had told him, it was a completely different feeling to hear it from Uncle Long and Ice Soul. When he heard Mu Duo's words, he was so angry that he wanted to expel the Hong family from the Dark Family Alliance. However, after hearing what Uncle Long and Ice Spirit said, he had the urge to faint. Because this matter was already so serious that even if the Hong family was expelled, it wouldn't be able to be resolved perfectly. It was obvious that Ice Spirit's anger would not subside anytime soon. In addition to the fact that Hong Sui had just deepened his original hatred, he was not confident that Uncle Long would speak up for the Dark Clan Alliance on his account. I wonder how Senior would like to resolve this matter. After thinking for a long time, Mu Xing decided not to use a roundabout tactic, but to ask a direct question. You guys have to be the one asking. Anyway, I will always remember that someone wanted to roast my son and eat him. Fuck, I only have one son, and someone wants to eat him. Do you think this matter can be resolved? When Ice Spirit said this, he was angry again. This matter definitely can't be settled peacefully. Wasn't this obvious? After a moment of worry, Mu Xing's attitude was very good as she continued, Senior, if you have any ideas, please let us know. The Dark Family Alliance will definitely satisfy you. Do you think that I want to make a condition? Ice Spirit raised her eyebrows and asked. His words left Mu Xing at a loss. This senior was indeed as difficult to serve as the rumors said. Mu Xing didn't know what to say anymore. Wu, what should he do? Chapter 28:20 Who's bullying who? 3. Senior, my ancestor doesn't mean that you want to make conditions with us. What he means is that he is willing to pay you for the emotional damage. After all, this matter was caused by our Dark Family Alliance. We can't escape the blame. Seeing that the old ancestor was at a loss for words, Mu Duo quickly added. That's right, that's what I meant. Giving Mu Duo a look of admiration, Mu Xing quickly nodded and said. This little fellow sure knows how to talk. Ice Spirit looked at Mu Duo before turning to Leng Ruoxue and asked, Shuer, I'll take over the entire Hong family. As for the emotional damages, I'll leave them to you. You're the best at this. After she finished speaking, Ice Spirit left with Hong Sui and the rest of the Hong family members, leaving an embarrassed Leng Ruoxue to stare at her. What did he mean by she was the best? Could she say that she was not at all? However, it was obvious that the Dark Clan Alliance had placed their hopes on her. They only hoped that she would quickly state the conditions to resolve this matter so that they would not be so worried about the Ice Soul. It was a pity that Leng Ruoxue was at a loss of what to do. All the members of the Hong family were taken away by Ice Spirit. Although it was unknown if they were still alive, it was obvious that Ice Spirit didn't care about the Dark Family Alliance at all. If the other party was dissatisfied because of this, the negotiation might fall apart. With a probing attitude, Leng Ruoxue smiled faintly and asked, What do you think about Hong Sui and the others? We don't have any opinions. As long as Senior Ice Soul is happy, Mu Xing quickly said. This was really disloyal. Leng Ruoxue was suspicious of whether they could work together with such an alliance of dark clans. At the thought of this, Leng Ruoxue's attitude suddenly turned cold. She spoke in a businesslike manner, in that case, I'll leave the Hong family to Senior Ice Soul. Well, leave their lives to fate. No problem, Mu Xing nodded. He didn't dare to have any problems. After all, the Hong family was only one family, while the Dark Family Alliance had dozens of families. He had to consider the interests of most families. In addition, the Hong family had always been arrogant, and they weren't very popular in the alliance. Therefore, he had no qualms about abandoning the Hong family. However, he didn't expect that his decision to abandon the Hong family so easily would cause Leng Ruoxue to be dissatisfied with the Dark Alliance. However, if he had known, he would have still chosen to do so. What about emotional damage? Leng Ruoxue asked again. As long as we can afford it, everything is fine. Mu Xing said generously. In that case, let's pay the mental damage fee first. Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. Last time. Not paying together. Mu Xing's face was filled with question marks. Seeing that he did not understand, Leng Ruoxue patiently explained, last time, Jiao Yu and Hung Village from your alliance came and made some arrangements for us. They have already caused great harm to our people, physically and mentally. We have also asked for compensation, so you have to pay the previous payment first, and then we will talk about this. You even brought this? At this moment, Mu Xing had to admit that Leng Ruoxue was just like what Senior Ice Soul had said. She was very good at this. Look at him, he could even find a reason to ask for compensation for mental damage twice. What kind of IQ did he have? AI. Why didn't the Dark Clan Alliance have such a talent? It was no wonder Demon City had developed so quickly. Mu Xing sighed and gave Mu Duo a look. The latter took a step forward and placed a storage ring on the table beside Leng Ruoxue. Leng Ruoxue picked up the ring and glanced at it. Then, she looked at Mu Duo with a smile that was not a smile and said, Alliance Master Mu Duo is too dishonest. He clearly brought money, but he still doesn't admit it. Fuck. He didn't deny it, okay? He didn't have the time to say it. However, without giving Mu Duo a chance to speak, Leng Ruoxue continued, since the money from last time has been settled, let's discuss the compensation this time. Thanks, in fact, there was no need to discuss it. Everyone in the Dark Family Alliance, from Mu Xing to the ordinary elders, knew about Bing Pios' identity. How would they dare to bargain with Leng Ruoxue and the others? They couldn't wait for this matter to end so that the ice spirit wouldn't cause them trouble again. Hence, at this moment, they had no objections to any of Leng Ruoxue's conditions. They raised both their hands and feet in agreement. At the same time, the entire Dark Association was prepared to pay a huge price. This time, they were absolutely willing to pay. He only hoped that it would calm Ice Spirit's anger. After all, it was a great humiliation for any powerful cultivator to eat someone else's son and ask for their father's service. In addition, Ice Spirit was not the only powerhouse in Demon City. This was even more of a no delay. Leng Ruoxue was speechless when she saw how helpless everyone was. However, she could more or less understand their thoughts. After all, both Ice Spirit and Demon City were not to be trifled with. But when she thought of Uncle Long, Leng Ruoxue still gave Mu Xing some face and did not ask for too much. However, the amount of compensation from the 2 times was still enough to make the Dark Clan Alliance's heart ache. The pain was gone, but the matter was finally resolved. The Dark Family Alliance could finally let go of their worries. After the incident, Uncle Long naturally had to chat with his old friends. Leng Ruoxue personally went to see Ice Spirit and reported the incident to him. Who knew that Ice Soul did not care about Leng Ruoxue's conditions at all? Instead, she generously said to Leng Ruoxue, all the compensation will be considered as living expenses for the father and son in Demon City. Leng Ruoxue could only nod her head after hearing Bing Pios' words. Then, she could not help but ask, Senior, how do you plan to deal with the Hung family? She knew that Jiao Yu and the others weren't killed at all. Ice Spirit was completely lying to Hung Sui. When I'm done venting my hatred, I'll send them to hell. Ice Spirit replied without thinking. I also want to go to hell. Hearing this, Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but ask. Bing Pomo, this girl's way of thinking is really different. Senior, can you break open the void? Leng Ruoxue thought about this possibility and asked again. Although she was often in seclusion, she had always been thinking about this question. She had even asked Uncle Long, but Uncle Long and the others had told her that to break open the void, she would need a lot of divine power. In addition, she also needed to know the other party's accurate coordinates. In fact, with the Reverend God-level cultivators from Netherworld Prison, the coordinates were not important. What was important was divine power, and the amount of divine power needed to break the void was beyond ordinary people's imagination. Even a powerful Reverend God like Uncle Long didn't dare to try it. If he failed, the backlash would be quite serious. Ice Soul was silent for a while and then said, if I was at my peak, I could still try. But now, I definitely can't. AI. Len Ruoxue sighed. It seemed like she could only work hard on her cultivation. After all, she couldn't let others be in danger because of her own matters. The depressed Len Ruoxue then returned to her room listlessly. As for Ice Spirit, he could not make head or tail of Len Ruoxue's sudden change. However, he was not nosy enough to ask. After all, who did not have their own secrets? After Len Ruoxue returned to her room, she learned from her painful experience and sent someone to inform Uncle Long and the others that she was going into seclusion. This time, even if the emperor came, she wouldn't receive him. Naturally, Uncle Long had no objections to Len Ruoxue's effort in cultivation. However, Mu Sheng, who was present at the scene, felt depressed. From the looks of it, he knew that Len Ruoxue did not care about the Dark Family Alliance at all. However, he could not blame her for this. After all, it was the idiots from the Dark Family Alliance who messed up the matter. After thinking this through, Mu Sheng immediately adjusted her emotions and said to Uncle Long with a smile, Old Man Long, Len Ruoxue is in closed-door cultivation now. Our cooperation, although Mu Sheng had only finished half of her sentence, Uncle Long had already understood what she was thinking. He sighed helplessly and said, Old Man Mu, although I really want to help you, I'm embarrassed to ask for your help after what the Dark Family Alliance has done in the past. Look at you, why did you have to create an alliance? This is great, your level has been completely pulled down, sigh. Uncle Long kept sighing as he spoke, which made Mu Sheng feel depressed. Then, Mu Sheng also complained dejectedly, if I didn't make the alliance, my days wouldn't have been easy. I originally thought that with the alliance, the families would be able to help each other, but now it seems that I've thought too highly of some people. That's right. People like Hong Sui are like mud that can't hold up a wall. Uncle Long said with a look of disdain. In the past, he had looked down on Hong Sui in every possible way, and it was even more so now. What's the point of saying all this now? Do you have any way to restore my position in the hearts of the other people in Demon City? Mu Sheng begged, depressed. Difficult. It was difficult. Dongfang Yu, Dongfang Lin, and Ice Spirit are all our seniors, but now they've been humiliated because of the Hong family. I'm afraid they won't forgive you so easily. Also, that girl Shuer has always been protective and vengeful. It won't be easy to get past her. Uncle Long thought for a while and said helplessly. But didn't our Dark Family Alliance already compensate you unconditionally for your mental damage? Hearing Uncle Long's words, Mu Sheng could not help but ask. You think that's all? That's just not because I'm angry about your compensation, nothing else. Uncle Long glanced at Mu Sheng and reminded her. Chapter 28-21, Caught. 1. When Mu Sheng heard this, she immediately drooped her head, her body exuding a faint sorrowful aura. Seeing this, Uncle Long didn't know what to say except to sigh in sympathy. This matter. Mu Sheng was quite unlucky, but what could she do now that it had already happened? He could only accept it. Patting Mu Sheng on the shoulder, Uncle Long consoled her, your Dark Family Alliance should perform well in the future. As time passes, perhaps the people of Demon City will forgive you and act as if nothing had happened. Will you? Uncle Long? Mu Sheng asked, looking at Uncle Long with hope. We will. Uncle Long promised. In fact, he was not sure, but he could only say this to comfort his old friend. With Uncle Long's assurance, Mu Sheng's gloominess was greatly reduced. At least, he could still see hope, right? In reality, he was in a hurry to form an alliance with Demon City. Other than Demon City's extraordinary strength, the existence of Ice Soul, the former clan leader of the Qilin clan, was one of the reasons why he was so proactive. As an expert who had lived for a long time, how could Mu Sheng not see the potential of Len Ruoxue and the others? Demon City's future was limitless. Therefore, he really hoped to become the Dark Family's ally before Demon City was fully developed. That way, the Dark Family Alliance would be able to obtain great benefits. This would be of great benefit to the future development of the Dark Family Alliance. But now, AI. Thinking of the things the Hong family had done, Mu Sheng was in a bad mood again. After staying in Demon City for a few days and getting to know Uncle Dragon, Master Ning, and the others better, Mu Sheng left Demon City with a large group of people from the Dark Family Alliance. After watching Mu Sheng and the others leave, Master Ning turned to Uncle Long and asked curiously, "You guys, good gay friends? What about us?" Uncle Long was bewildered. There was something wrong with the old man's eyes. He was secretly on guard. "Nothing, I just feel that your relationship seems to be quite unusual." Master Ning was afraid that Uncle Long would be angry, so he naturally wouldn't say anything, so his words were very subtle. "Our relationship is very ordinary." Uncle Long looked at Master Ning and said calmly. "Fuck." He knew that this old man would let his thoughts run wild. This old bastard. Uncle Long really wanted to beat him up. However, he didn't make it clear, so Uncle Long felt that he had no reason to do so. "You bastard." For Shuai'er's sake, he had to endure it. "That means he treats you differently." Master Ning could feel that Uncle Long was a little angry, but he couldn't stop gossiping, so he changed the topic. Uncle Long was silent. He resisted the urge to beat someone up and shouted, "You're wrong, he just can't bear to part with you." Slander. This was definitely slander. Master Ning was furious. "You can't wrong people like this." The one Mu Sheng couldn't bear to part with was obviously Uncle Long, but now Uncle Long was pouring dirty water on her. This was really too much. Master Ning wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He couldn't help but shout in his heart, "Shuai'er! Someone is bullying your godfather." Uncle Long was happy to see Master Ning's face fall because of what he had said. He deserved it. Who asked him to gossip? He was bored. Uncle Long felt that he had vented his hatred. But then, he was also worried. With Shuai'er and closed-door cultivation, they really didn't have anything to do. AI. How should he spend this time? Thanks. Uncle Long was conflicted and suddenly fell silent. Then, Uncle Long and Master Ning sat in the room and stared at each other. A few days later, Uncle Long and Master Ning received the news that Ming Ji and the others had arrived. Uncle Long and Master Ning were both shocked by the news. Minga and the others had arrived, but had that demon returned? With a trace of curiosity, the two immediately went to see Ming Ji and the others. In the living room, besides Dongfang Yu and Dongfang Lin, there were only the four of them. "Didn't the Dark Lord come?" Master Ning said disappointedly as he didn't see the monster. "How could the Lord be here? With the obstruction of the laws of heaven and earth, he can't come here openly. However, we did receive Muli's voice transmission. His Lord has some words for us to pass on to Miss Leng." Minga said, a look of struggle on her face. "Ah. What did he mean by receiving Muli's voice transmission? Didn't you go back to the Netherworld jail?" Master Ning asked in confusion. "No, I didn't. Without Master breaking the void, the price we have to pay to return is very high, so we simply stayed," Minga said matter-of-factly. After hearing Ming Ji's words, Master Ning, Uncle Long, and the others were all depressed. Ever since the evildoers had been sent back to the Nine Nether prison by the laws of heaven and earth, the four of them had disappeared without a trace. At that time, they had thought that they had also been teleported back. Who knew that the four of them had not left the divine world at all? If you didn't leave the divine realm, then where were you all during this period of time? Uncle Long couldn't help asking. "Let's go for a walk," Ming Ji replied with a smirk. Such an answer made Uncle Long and the others even more speechless. These four heartless bastards. Their master had already been sent back, but these four guys still had the mood to wander around. It was really too hateful. It had to be said that the four of them were very good at pulling aggro. But Ming Song didn't seem to care, and continued to ask, "Where is Miss Leng?" "His Lord has a message for me. Shuai'er has gone into seclusion." Uncle Long replied indifferently. Then. This? Minga was at a loss. Let's wait for Shuai to come out and tell her. Before she went into seclusion, Shuai said that no one or anything was to disturb her. Uncle Long said honestly. All right then. AI. It's really too unfortunate. Minga said with a look of regret. Shuai is also working hard on her cultivation. Master Ning said with a smile. Yes. Ming Ji nodded. Only by cultivating hard could she meet her lord as soon as possible. Therefore, he was very supportive of Leng Ruoxu's closed-door cultivation. But he was afraid that his lord would be disappointed, but he believed that his lord would definitely understand. We found 2 people, are you interested? He asked with a mysterious smile. Who is it? Uncle Long and the others immediately asked. With Cher in seclusion and Demon City gradually getting back on track, everyone was so bored that when they heard Ming Song's words, they were all extremely excited. Hee hee. If you're interested, you can come with us and you'll know. Minga said, keeping him in suspense. Then let's go take a look. Uncle Long and the others said helplessly when they saw that Ming Ji refused to tell them. Of course, they couldn't all go, so after some discussion, they asked Dongfang Yu to stay at home. Although Dongfang Yu was reluctant, what could he do when his younger brother had already abandoned him by obeying the majority? Chapter 28-22, Caught, 2. As for Uncle Long and the others, who were so bored that they were panicking, after deciding on the candidates to stay behind, they immediately pulled Minga and the others along and set off. After walking for a long time, Ming's group of 4 finally brought Uncle Long and the others to the edge of a cliff that no one knew about. This is the place. Minga pointed to the cliff not far away and said to Uncle Long and the others. This place? Uncle Long and the others were puzzled. What were they doing in the wilderness? Didn't they say that they found 2 people? Could the 2 of them be at the bottom of the cliff? Seeing the thoughts of Uncle Long and the others, Minga nodded and said, he's down there. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go down and take a look. Master Ning said immediately. After saying that, he was the first to jump down. Uncle Long and the others followed closely behind. When they reached the bottom of the cliff, Uncle Long and the others were depressed to find that the bottom of the cliff was so dark that they couldn't even see their fingers. In order not to alert the enemy, they didn't dare to light a fire. Follow me closely, it's over there. At this time, Minga sent a message to Uncle Long and the others. Then, Uncle Long and the others quietly followed Ming Ji. Fortunately, everyone's night vision ability was not bad, and they were all Reverend God-level cultivators, so their spiritual sense had a wide range. Otherwise, in this place where they couldn't even see their own fingers, even walking would be a problem. After a long time, Minga stopped again, pointed to a spot of light in the distance, and said, it's the place with light in front. The person is there. Upon hearing this, Uncle Long and the others instantly became 120,000% alert and quickly approached the target. When they were about 100 meters away from their target, Minga stopped again and continued to transmit his voice to everyone, you guys stay here for the time being, I'll go get the person out. Uncle Long and the others nodded, but they were more and more curious about the person Ming Ji was talking about. However, they didn't have time to think for too long before they saw a fire rising from the ground. Then, a ball of fire flew into the sky. Then, there was another golden light. This was... You bastard! Aren't they the Dragon Emperor and the Phoenix King? After a long observation, the crowd finally confirmed the identity of the 2 people mentioned by Ming Ji. They had been looking for these 2 guys, both openly and secretly. Now that they had found them, they naturally couldn't let them escape. With the same thought, Uncle Long and the others leaped into the air and surrounded the Dragon Emperor and Phoenix King. The Dragon Emperor and the Phoenix King, who had been planning to join forces to deal with Ming Ji, were a little flustered when they saw so many people suddenly appear around them. However, they quickly pretended to be calm and said with disdain, what, you guys plan to gang up on me? A group fight? Good idea. Uncle Long touched his chin and smiled evilly. Dragon Whale, you're also an expert. How can you collude with the humans? Hearing this, the Dragon Emperor immediately raged. What do you mean by colluding with humans? You're still in cahoots with that foggy bitch. Why didn't you say anything? Uncle Long said with a smile. Ha ha ha. Of course he wouldn't say it. He's a man who relies on women to get to his position, how could he have the nerve to say it? Dongfang Lin chimed in. The Dragon Emperor was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Fuck. That detestable dragon whale. Despicable humans. One day, I'll take care of you all. The Dragon Emperor secretly complained, but what about now? The Dragon Emperor did not have the slightest confidence that he could escape from these people. However, it was clearly even more impossible for him to surrender without putting up a fight. Thanks. After thinking for a while, he gave the Phoenix King a look, hoping that the Phoenix King would make the first move. However, the Phoenix King, who did not trust the Dragon Emperor, did not move at all. She only looked at the Dragon Emperor. The Dragon Emperor was furious. Suddenly, his and the Phoenix King's eyes met. Uncle Long couldn't stand the two of them being so affectionate. Ayaya. Can you guys restrain yourselves? You're casting amorous glances at us in public, won't we get a needle's eye if we see it? Eyes? The Dragon Emperor and Phoenix King felt a chill and quickly turned their heads away, no longer looking at each other. However, their actions were also maliciously seen by Uncle Long as a cover-up. You're really shy. Was there a need for that? Although you're from different races, true love is not a sin. I'll definitely support your love. Uncle Long glanced at the other party and smiled. Dragon Whale. Damn it. You shut up. The Phoenix King fire roared. Why should I shut up? Even if you're the Phoenix King, you can't stop my freedom of speech, right? Uncle Long was not happy to be yelled at. At this time, Master Ning said, Uncle Long, why are you wasting your breath on them? Just take them down and take them back. Detestable. Who do you want to take care of? As soon as Master Ning finished speaking, the Dragon Emperor and the Phoenix King became even angrier, and they questioned him in unison. Besides the two of you, is there anyone else here? Master Ning said with a smile. Damn it. I won't let you off. Seeing that the other party had already named him, the Phoenix King could no longer control her anger and directly transformed into her original form, pouncing towards Master Ning. Heavens! The Phoenix King has gone crazy. Master Ning saw this and shouted exaggeratedly. Then, he dodged the attacks of the Phoenix King in all directions. Master Ning's movements were extremely flexible, and every time the Phoenix King's attack was about to touch him, he would be able to dodge it. This fact also made the Phoenix King extremely depressed. How detestable. She didn't believe that she couldn't hit him. The Phoenix King was furious. Before she attacked, she turned to the Dragon Emperor and roared, What are you waiting for? Come and help. I'm coming. The Phoenix King was just about to nod in satisfaction when she realized that it was not the Dragon Emperor who had spoken, but Uncle Long. Then, Uncle Long also joined in the fight between Master Ning and the Phoenix King. The Phoenix King, who already had a headache, almost spat out a mouthful of blood when she saw that she had another opponent. Fuck. Why didn't men know how to be tender to women these days? She was a woman. But Uncle Long was still ruthless. And Master Ning was responsible for angering her. The two of them divided the work and cooperated with each other, and their cooperation was called tacit understanding. However, the Phoenix King, who accidentally caught a glimpse of the Dragon Emperor's current state, instantly felt balanced. This was because the Dragon Emperor was currently surrounded by 4 Reverend God-level experts. In comparison, she was extremely lucky. But she didn't want to be so lucky. She couldn't even wait to avoid these people, so why would she be willing to get entangled with them? However, the current situation clearly did not allow her to leave even if she was unwilling. It didn't take long for the Dragon Emperor and the Phoenix King to be exhausted to the point of panting. Uncle Long and the others were taking turns to rest. The Dragon Emperor and the Phoenix King were so angry that they almost fainted. In the end, the Dragon Emperor and Phoenix King, who were exhausted from the torture, had no choice but to become each other's prisoners. When the Dragon Emperor and Phoenix King were captured and brought back to Demon City, they immediately became negative examples and were put in cages for display. Meanwhile, Demon City's residents had long since heard of these two famous players. Now that they saw one of them alive, they naturally wanted to take a good look at them. Chapter 28-23, Caught. 3. The Dragon Emperor and Phoenix King, who felt the crowd pointing at them, wished they could just faint. But now, they couldn't just faint as they wished. Hate. The hatred they had for Uncle Long and the others was like a raging river that would never stop. But Uncle Long and the others obviously didn't mind the fire in his eyes. In order to keep the two of them company, Uncle Long even brought the White Tiger King along. This time, the three brothers and sisters were finally gathered together. The White Tiger King, who thought that it was innocent, was resentful of the treatment it had received. Because before the Phoenix King and the Dragon Emperor came here, he had the authority of a tiger aside from doing some heavy physical work. But now, he had really become a tiger to be admired. How could he bear this? Instantly, he began to hate the Dragon Emperor and the Phoenix King. In fact, the people he wanted to hate the most were Uncle Long and the others, but he didn't dare to hate them, so he could only blame his anger on the Dragon Emperor and the Phoenix King. Not long after, the three Beast Kings, who all had hatred in their hearts, began to fight in the huge cage. When they saw the three beasts killing each other, the crowd was stunned for a moment. When they came back to their senses, someone immediately went to inform Uncle Long and the others. However, when Uncle Long and the others heard this news, they didn't think much of it. Fight. Fight. It's healthier to fight. And keeping the three of them in the same cage was to make them kill each other. In the end, Uncle Long and the others heard that the three beastie fought very fiercely and were all injured quite badly. However, no one cared how badly they were injured. Time passed. 3 months after the Dragon Emperor, the Phoenix King, and the White Tiger King were locked up in cages, Ice Soul received the news and went to see them with Bing Yao. One couldn't blame him for not having access to information. The main reason was that he had also brought his son into closed-door cultivation recently. After all, his son's strength was too low now, and the Ice Phoenix was a beastie that didn't really like to cultivate. Thus, he could only force his son to cultivate hard. However, he didn't dare to push his son too hard. Otherwise, little Ice Phoenix would disown him as a father in a rage. Where would he go to cry then? Holding the Ice Phoenix in front of the giant cage, Ice Spirit took a look and shook his head. These three guys had betrayed their king, and didn't they end up like this now? Originally, as Beastie himself, he did not want to see Beastie being treated like this. However, facing these three people, he could not sympathize with them at all. He brought this upon himself. Father, why have they been locked up? Bing Yao blinked her clear blue eyes, looking at the three people in front of her and asking in confusion. It had not been long since it was awakened by Leng Ruoxue, so it was not clear about the grudges between Leng Ruoxue and the others and these three fellows. No one had told it about it, so it was extremely curious at this moment. If you do something wrong, you'll be locked up. Ice Spirit said. Oh. So they had done something wrong. However, wouldn't it take up a lot of space to lock him up? It was better to just kill him directly. It's good to save effort. Bing Yao tilted her head and seemed to be talking to herself. Upon hearing this, Ice Spirit broke out in a cold sweat. He didn't expect his son to have violent genes. However, this was more like the son of Ice Spirit. Ice Spirit said narcissistically. The conversation between the father and son had successfully alarmed the three dejected people in the cage who had long been tortured to the point of losing their temper. The Dragon Emperor and the other two were stunned the moment they raised their heads. After coming back to his senses, the Dragon Emperor stammered. This person is not. What about me? What, you want to pretend you don't know him? Ice Spirit sneered. In fact, he had seen the three little fellows in the cage before. They were once considered his juniors, but ever since they betrayed their old friends, they had become thorns in his eyes. You're Senior Ice Soul? The Phoenix King could not believe it and asked carefully. I'm an ice spirit. As for your senior, I'm not worthy of it. Ice Spirit did not give the Phoenix King any face. Senior, we were forced to do so back then. The Phoenix King knew what the Ice Spirit was angry about, so she could only speak pitifully in an attempt to gain the Ice Spirit's sympathy. Unfortunately, Ice Spirit hated betrayal the most in his life, so it was impossible for him to forgive the three of them. It was not up to him to decide whether he would let them go or not. Therefore, the Phoenix King had expressed the wrong feelings. However, when Bing Yao heard this, she asked curiously, "You have no choice. Who forced you?" "It's Rhyme Ice. She's forcing us, and if we don't do as she says, she'll kill us." The Phoenix King thought that there was a way to turn the situation around and said to Bing Yao with tears in her eyes. If she didn't hear wrongly, this little Qilin was the son of Ice Spirit, right? If she could win the sympathy of this little Qilin, she felt that she should still have a chance to get out of this cage. However, who knew that Bing Yao would only say with a face full of regret, "What a pity. Why didn't that old woman say that I would kill you if you did as I said?" Thanks. What was the meaning of this? The Phoenix King was dumbfounded. Then, she heard Bing Yao say fiercely, "Bastard. My father abandoned me so that he wouldn't be threatened by that old woman, but you cowards did unforgivable things just to live. Why don't you all just go to hell?" In little Zuexu's words, "It's a waste of food for you dead things to live. Father. Destroy them. I don't want to see them." Bing Yao turned around and said to Bing Po with a bitter expression. "All right." Ice Spirit wouldn't refuse his son's request. He knew that his son probably felt the same way and felt wronged. How detestable. The father-son relationship that he had tried so hard to mend must not be worsened by these three idiots. Then, Ice Spirit raised one hand and divine power slowly gathered in her palm. Seeing more and more divine power gathering in Ice Spirit's hand, the Phoenix King and the other two's hearts started to beat wildly. The Phoenix King had never even dreamed that because of a few words from him, that little Qilin would want to kill him. The White Tiger King and the Dragon Emperor, who had been innocently implicated by her, were also extremely depressed. For the first time, the three of them realized that they were so close to death. A heavy pressure slowly enveloped the three of them, making them feel as if their breathing was heavy. A deathly silence and suffocating atmosphere pressed down on the three of them. "Senior, please spare the beast." Just when the three of them felt that they were about to die, a familiar and hateful voice rang in their ears. "What, you don't want to kill them?" Ice Soul asked in a bad tone as she glanced at Uncle Long. "Senior, you misunderstand. How could I not want to kill them? It's just that Shuai needs beasts to train her beast-taming skills, so," Uncle Long quickly explained. He only finished half of his sentence, but he believed that Ice Spirit would understand. "All right. Then I'll spare their lives for now. I'll kill them after Shuai is done using them," Ice Spirit said considerately. "That's not a problem," Uncle Long promised. Just like that, the fate of the Phoenix King and the other two were decided. They would first train Ling Ruoxue with the beast-taming technique. After the beast-taming technique was used up, they would be handed over to Ice Spirit. When Uncle Long and Ice Spirit decided the fate of these three, they did not even consider the thoughts of their respective clans. When the Phoenix King and the other two heard this, their faces instantly turned as pale as paper. The White Tiger King couldn't take the shock and fainted. Ice Soul shook his head even more violently. Such a person who was afraid of death actually dared to do something like betraying. It was really unimaginable. Sighing, Ice Soul held her son in disgust and left quietly. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue, who was cultivating hard in her bracelet, had no idea that Uncle Long and the rest had captured the Dragon Emperor and Phoenix King and were preparing to let her tame them. However, she couldn't pay attention to that right now. At this time, she was fully absorbing the spiritual energy in the bracelet that was so dense that it was almost solid, in order to feed her huge appetite. However, after absorbing it for nearly 3 months, she found that the spiritual energy in her body was only a little thicker than a strand of hair. This fact made her extremely depressed. She could not help but summon Green Vessel. Leng Ruoxue asked gloomily, "Green Vessel, with this absorption method, I think it will take at least 1,000 years to store enough spiritual qi." She had long known that she needed an enormous amount of spiritual energy, so even if she was not yet perfect in alchemy and other aspects, she had decided to save enough spiritual energy first, and then specialize in other things. But now, it had only been 3 months, and she was depressed. "Sister, calm down. You have the chaotic body, so it's normal for you to need a lot of spiritual energy. The heaven-defying arts is no ordinary technique, so it's only natural that you need even more. Besides, this is a path that you must take. Once you've cultivated the heaven-defying art to the great circle of the 9th stage, not only can you go to the 9 nether prison to find the demonic man, but you can also take revenge for your old master." Qing Ju's face was filled with anticipation. He believed that these 2 reasons were enough to support his sister's will and make her work harder in her cultivation. As expected, after hearing Qing Ju's words, Leng Ruoxue's beautiful eyes shone with determination. Then, she said in frustration, "Qing Ju, I will work hard in my cultivation. I won't let my thoughts run wild." "That's more like it. Sister, you can do it." Qing Ju clenched his small fist and encouraged. Leng Ruoxue nodded and closed her eyes to absorb the spirit qi. Qing Ju only nodded in satisfaction and left when he saw the large amount of spiritual energy in the bracelet rushing into his sister's body from all directions. At the same time, the evildoers in the 9 nether prison also learned that Shuai was cultivating in seclusion. Although Ming Ji didn't pass on his words, he still felt excited when he knew that Shuai was working so hard to cultivate so that she could come to see him as soon as possible. He also needed to work hard. He would try his best to find trouble with the laws of heaven and earth. "You bastard." Since he dared to separate him and Shuai, he had to be mentally prepared for his revenge. Although he had been quiet for a while, it didn't mean that he had forgotten what the laws of heaven and earth had done to him. Looking up at the dark purple lightning floating not far away, the demon revealed an evil smile. Chapter 28-24, Chaotic World. 1. Since he couldn't see Shuai, it seemed like he could only go and accompany the laws of heaven and earth. With this thought in mind, the demon's smile became even more brilliant, but the dark purple lightning in the distance couldn't help but shiver. The laws of heaven and earth in the chaos further away also began to feel uneasy for no reason. However, the uneasiness in its heart was transmitted back by the lightning that he had arranged to monitor the evildoer. This made it wonder if that guy had come up with some kind of trick again. It secretly opened a window in the vast chaos and looked down. When it found that everything was normal, it heaved a sigh of relief. It was still all right. It was still all right. Although the demonic man often insulted it, at least he had not lost his mind and done anything irredeemable. It was relieved. In fact, it didn't want to be a villain and break up a couple. However, as a rule that was born from chaos and was responsible for executing the laws of heaven and earth, it had to do so. Who asked that guy to be a dangerous person with a strong dark attribute? If he was really allowed to wander around, the whole world would probably be paralyzed. In order to prevent this from happening, it could only control the movement of the dangerous people within the 9 nether prison, which was the most suitable place for the evil man to live. Thinking about it carefully, the laws of heaven and earth felt that everything they did was based on a good reason and that it was only natural. Unfortunately, the evildoer would not think this way, nor would he be grateful for its dedication. After summoning Mu Li, the demon didn't say anything. He just quietly looked at Mu Li, who was originally calm, became uneasy, but he didn't say anything. In the end, Mu Li couldn't help but ask, "My lord, did I do something wrong? When Mu Li asked this question, his little heart trembled and he tried to recall his recent performance. Finally, he confirmed that he had not done anything to make his lord unhappy. He was sure. Then what was his lord trying to do now? Mu Li thought about it gloomily. Could it be that some blind person had offended his lord? But something was wrong. Recently, his lord was going through menopause, and as his subordinates, they all tried to stay as far away as possible. When there was nothing, they absolutely did not dare to appear easily to make his lord unhappy. So, he really couldn't think of what kind of temper his lord was having. Could it be that her menopause had worsened? Thinking of this possibility, the worry in Mu Li's heart increased. He deeply felt that without Leng Ruoxue, that demon, to restrict his lord, everything would be bad for them. Sob. Leng Ruoxue, quickly appear. Otherwise, they would have a mental breakdown because of their master's menopause. But now, Mu Li felt that he was developing in the direction of mental illness. After the demon sized up Mu Li, he asked indifferently, "How's your life recently? How's your life?" What was the meaning of this? His lord was actually concerned about their lives. Most of the time, his lord was like a sheep to them. Unless it was necessary, he never cared about their life and death, not to mention now, he was so caring for them. This was not normal. This was definitely not normal. With this thought in mind, Mu Li carefully and sneakily sized up the evildoer with the corner of her eyes. Oh! Just by looking at his appearance, his lord was as usual. Inside. It couldn't be seen with the eyes. Based on his understanding of his lord's words today were definitely abnormal. Master. Could it be that he missed Leng Ruoxue so much that he went crazy? Could this be a sign of the initial stage of mental illness? He peeked at Mu Li, who was letting his imagination run wild, and he was deeply worried about the health of his lord. Thanks, shouldn't we find an alchemist to take a look at his lord's illness? Mu Li thought to himself, but then he realized that there was no alchemist in the netherworld prison. Could it be that he had to sneak through the divine realm? However, he believed that no alchemist would be willing to come here. AI. Mu Li was so conflicted that he sighed. Facing such a worried expression from his subordinate, the demon asked in confusion, "What's wrong? Life hasn't been going well recently." "Which aspect?" The demon was laughing evilly in his heart. When Mu Li heard this, the hidden bitterness on her face deepened. It would be a wonder if it could go as he wished. One must know that they were on tenterhooks every day, afraid that their lord would flip out for no reason. Mu Li secretly complained in his heart, but he definitely did not dare to say this in front of his master. Seeing Mu Li's bitter and constipated expression flashing on his face from time to time, the demon deliberately misunderstood and put on a good master's posture. He asked with concern, "Do you want me to arrange a few women for you?" Why would he arrange for a woman? Mu Li was confused when she heard this. Could it be that the lord was trying to match a couple randomly? That's not right. His lord had never liked to meddle in this kind of thing. Don't be embarrassed, it's normal for men and women to be in love. Seeing that Mu Li just widened her eyes and looked at him in disbelief, the demon thought that Mu Li was embarrassed and consoled her very considerately. Who knew that after Mu Li heard this, she wanted to kneel down in front of her lord. "My lord, I'm not embarrassed." Mu Li wanted to cry, but no tears came out. She was wailing in her heart. Don't misunderstand. However, the demon had obviously misunderstood, and the misunderstanding was very deep. He nodded and said, "Since that's the case, I'll make the arrangements and find you a few good ones." AI. You're not young anymore, but you're still alone. I can't bear to see you like this. Don't be heartless. My lord, you should be as cruel as before. Mu Li deeply felt that he was more used to the previous master. The current master who was so caring and considerate to his subordinates was definitely abnormal. Could he have been switched? Thinking of this possibility, Mu Li carefully observed the demon again. But after sizing up his master, he finally confirmed that his master was still the original master, but the way he did things was a little different. My lord, I don't want a woman. Seeing that his lord had not been switched, Muli had to bite the bullet and refuse. It's fine even if it's a man. The demon looked at Muli deeply and said. He didn't want men either. My lord, Muli burst into tears. My lord, don't be so considerate. He really couldn't afford it. You're welcome. This is something I should have done for you. Sighing, the evildoer said with an I've failed my duty expression. Master, you've already done very well. As for the personal life of this subordinate, let us arrange it ourselves. Muli carefully suggested. But I've been very bored recently. If you don't let me handle this matter, what else can I do? The demon looked at Muli with a face full of resentment and said sadly. Muli was a little annoyed. Chapter 28-25, Chaotic World, 2, he thought to himself, Master, you're bored because you're pushing everything to me. If his lord was willing to take over Jilyo City, he could guarantee that his lord would not have the time to be bored. However, he didn't dare to say it out loud, so he could only suggest, My lord, do you want me to hand over Jilyo City's affairs to you? Don't. I'm not interested in the affairs of Jilyo City. The demon refused without even thinking. Upon hearing this, Muli wanted to cry to death. He knew it. Looking at the situation, his lord was determined to interfere in his private life. Muli was extremely depressed and racked his brains to think about what other way to make his lord give up interfering in his life. However, no matter how much he thought about it, he could only think of Leng Ruoxue. Unless Leng Ruoxue appeared in an instant, no one would have the ability to attract his lord's attention. Sob. Was he destined to be chased and blocked by a group of annoying women in the future? Thinking of this possibility, Muli couldn't help but shudder. Women are tigers. After witnessing Leng Ruoxue's valiance, it could be said that he no longer had any thoughts about women. She even thought that being single was pretty good. After that, would he still have the chance to continue doing whatever he wanted? The thought of one or more women interfering in his life and pointing fingers at him in the future made him feel disgusted. No. He would never allow such a thing to happen to him. After thinking for a while, Muli forced a smile and asked patiently, then what else is the Lord interested in? Other than arranging a woman or man for him? I'm also quite interested in finding trouble with the rules of the heaven and earth. However, compared to finding trouble with the rules of the heaven and earth, I think it's easier to arrange a few women for you. So, which one do you think I should choose? The demon asked with an evil smile. My lord, I will definitely support you in finding trouble with the laws of the world. It was true. I swear on my loyalty that I will absolutely support your actions. After listening to his master's words, Muli immediately broke out in a cold sweat. However, in order to not die, he had to fearlessly sell out the rules of heaven and earth. Otherwise, he would be the master's toy. Support me? How do you want to support me? The demon asked with a smile. Muli was a little speechless. How could she support him? His small arms could not twist the thigh of the law of heaven and earth, so he could only support his lord with words. However, he had already realized that what his lord wanted was not just verbal support. For a moment, Muli felt a deep pain in her balls again. He felt that he had been tricked. I'm afraid this is the Lord's ultimate goal. All those things about caring about his life and finding a few women for him might just be a smoke bomb that his lord had thrown out. Sob. His lord was too bad. It had to be said that Muli was right. The demon had gone through so much trouble just to lure Muli into his trap, although he could also use his authority to force his subordinates to agree with his decision. However, he believed that he was a democratic lord, so he could not force his subordinates to do something dangerous. At the same time, he also knew that once his plan was known by Muli, who was occasionally a little old-fashioned, it would inevitably cause strong opposition from the other party. Moreover, Muli was his left and right arm, so he naturally had to consider the other party's opinion. Thanks as such, he picked the thing that Mu Li was most afraid of and attacked. Mu Li had fallen for the trap. After thinking for a long time, Mu Li sighed and asked, "My lord, how do you plan to find trouble with the laws of heaven and earth?" Mu Li believed that his lord would not just scold the rules of heaven and earth like he did in the past. Otherwise, his lord would not scheme against him like this. Woo! His lord has been corrupted. Mu Li especially missed the lord of the past, and the lord of the past was so obedient. But now, the master was very, very bad. And this was definitely led astray by that human, Leng Ruoxue. Otherwise, why would his lord have so many thoughts? After forcing his master's bad behavior onto Leng Ruoxue, Mu Li felt much more comfortable. "I plan to bring you all to the nest of the laws of heaven and earth," the demon said. When Mu Li heard this, she blinked and blinked again. Seeing that her lord had a serious expression the whole time, he felt a headache again. "My lord. Isn't the law of the heaven and earth's lair also your birthplace? Where could small fries like them go?" His lord's thoughts made Mu Li speechless for a while. In fact, he was too lazy to even ridicule her. As a matter of fact, to the people of Nine Nether Prison who were born and raised there, that place was undoubtedly mysterious. The laws of heaven and earth were a rather high and mighty existence to them. Now, his lord actually said that he would take them to the lair of the laws of heaven and earth. This. Mu Li felt a mouthful of blood stuck in his throat. He couldn't swallow it down, and his face turned red. In the end, he finally swallowed the mouthful of blood. After taking a long deep breath, he finally calmed down and looked at his master helplessly. He said faintly, "My lord, I'm afraid we can't go there." "Don't worry, as long as I'm here, you guys can go," the demon said calmly. "But, they won't get hurt. Wouldn't he lose his life?" Although Mu Li really wanted to ask this, he swallowed these questions when he saw his lord's confident expression. As a loyal subordinate, since his lord wanted to go, he naturally had to accompany his lord at the risk of his life. When he secretly disclosed the news to the city masters who were guarding the Nine Nether Prison, he was surprised to find that those bastards were more excited and expectant than him. He was even more eager to try. These bastards. Was he in such a hurry to find trouble with the laws of the heaven and earth? Weren't they afraid that the laws of heaven and earth would take revenge? Of course, this was because the muley was oversensitive. The laws of heaven and earth were the beings that were given by chaos to control order. They were extremely self-disciplined and naturally wouldn't do whatever they wanted like the demons. And if it really used public office for private revenge, it would probably be the first to be obliterated by the laws. Therefore, as the representative of the laws of heaven and earth, even in the face of the provocation of a monster, he could only silently endure it. More importantly, it would never have thought that the evildoer would bring his subordinates to its territory in such an aggressive manner. That's right, the only living being in the chaotic world was itself. The evildoer and the others who were born from the chaotic world also had their own missions. Therefore, they had always regarded the chaotic world as their own home. When they first saw the evildoer leading a large number of people here, their surprise was self-evident. "Why are you here?" Filled with shock and uneasiness, the laws of heaven and earth transformed into a ball of dark purple lightning and floated in front of the demon and the others, sizing them up. The large group of people in front of him, other than the demon's ruddy face and his refreshed complexion, all of them were pale and weak. However, this was normal. After all, this was no ordinary space. This place was a stretch of primal chaos, and it was not a place where these fellows could survive. Since they had come here, they would naturally have to pay a certain price. Chapter 28-26, Chaotic World, 3. This was similar to altitude sickness when ordinary people went from a low altitude to a high altitude. Of course, this was not something that could be compared to altitude sickness. If the demonic man in front of him had not protected his subordinates with his divine power, they would have been killed by the violent chaotic chi. "Can't I come?" the demon asked with a smile that was not a smile. "Ah. In the face of the demon's hostility, the rules of heaven and earth were ruthlessly choked. Then, they explained, "You've been away for a long time. I thought you wouldn't come back. I didn't want to come back at first, but I've been bored recently, so I gave my subordinates some benefits and went to the chaos world for a tour." The demon laughed. Hearing this, the rules of heaven and earth wanted to curse. Fuck. A swim? To bring a large number of subordinates here, you must be lying to a ghost. The regulations of the heaven and earth did not believe the demon's words at all. After all, its intelligence was not low, so how could it be deceived by a demon with a few words? This place isn't suitable for them. After a long silence, the laws of heaven and earth finally said, "I know, but with me around, they can still stay here for a while." The demon replied with a smile. "Fuck. Alright, your sister." The regulations of the heaven and earth were enraged. This guy clearly wanted to set up camp here. It knew that the despicable man in front of it had brought all his elite subordinates here, and those who were left in the 9 Nether prison were just some small fries. It was hateful that the other party was too mysterious. It had only discovered everything when they were at its door. Sob. The laws of heaven and earth are very sad. If it had tears, it really wanted to cry. You can't bully people like this, okay? No, you can't bully the rules of the world like this, okay? In fact, even though it could sometimes use the rules of heaven and earth to restrain the man in front of it, most of the time, it could not do anything to this guy. After all, it was at the same level as the guy in front of him. However, it was in charge of the rules of heaven and earth, and all living creatures in the world were restricted by the rules. Therefore, it had some innate advantages when facing a demon. However, these innate advantages were only useful when the demon violated the rules. Usually, it could only pretend to be a grandson in front of this guy. Who asked this guy's destructive power to be unparalleled? At this moment, he had come to the chaotic world. It couldn't refuse him. After all, this was the place where the Dark Lord was born. However, it really couldn't say, "Welcome." After all, the other party did not come with good intentions. How long do you guys plan to stay? After a long time, the laws of heaven and earth asked. Well, see. Perhaps hell stay here until Schwer becomes a divine master. The demon laughed in a particularly carefree manner. At this moment, he was sure that the laws of heaven and earth must be very depressed. After all, he did not violate the laws of heaven and earth when he returned to the chaotic world. Therefore, the laws of heaven and earth could do nothing to him. As expected, after hearing these words, the laws of heaven and earth became extremely worried. It even wanted to kneel in front of the demon and beg him to leave quickly. However, it didn't have a physical body. As long as the other party didn't violate the rules of heaven and earth, it couldn't use the power of the rules. This kind of thing made it secretly vomit blood. How detestable. How could there be such a hateful guy in the world, and this guy had an inexplicable relationship with it? They were considered brothers. But how could there be such a detestable brother in this world? At this moment, it missed the gentle you very much. Unfortunately, that guy. After a moment of worry, the regulations of heaven and earth said helplessly, since that's the case, you can stay here. However, don't say I didn't warn you that your subordinates won't be able to stay here for long. Their bodies are too weak to withstand the violent energy here. Since he couldn't drive him away, he would just accept it. Sobs. The heaven-earth law that had to compromise for the sake of the greater good really wanted to cry. I know, I won't let them stay here for too long, but I'm definitely going to stay. With me by your side, we can be considered as companions. Otherwise, you'll be so lonely living here. The demon said kindly. Unfortunately, the regulations of the heaven and earth did not appreciate it at all. They only looked at the demon with hidden bitterness before it turned around and floated away. Is that the true body of the laws of the world? It's a lightning ball. After the heaven-earth law left, the pale-faced Mu Li asked in a low voice. Just now, when the superior laws of heaven and earth were present, he didn't even dare to breathe loudly, nor did he dare to look around for fear of angering the laws of heaven and earth. However, as soon as the other party left, he couldn't control his gossiping heart. The uneasiness he had when he came here before had disappeared without a trace. At the same time, he began to look around. Thanks seeing the thick gray fog in front of him, Mu Li sighed. This is the chaotic world. Was it a place where their master, divine master, and the laws of heaven and earth were nurtured? It was really too cold and desolate. There was no popularity at all. Mu Li really couldn't understand. How could the laws of heaven and earth tolerate tens of thousands of years of loneliness and live here alone? At this moment, he even sympathized with the law of the heaven and earth that had once been high and mighty in his heart. It seemed that it was not necessarily a good thing to obtain an ability that others could not. However, despite his sympathy, he still felt that there was a considerable distance between the rules of heaven and earth and himself, so he still did not dare to make a loud noise. When the demon heard Mu Li's words, he only smiled faintly and said, "True body? I guess so. However, that's no ordinary lightning ball." Seeing Mu Li's blank expression, the demon laughed evilly and said, "If you don't believe me, you can try to attack me." He didn't dare to. Mu Li glanced resentfully at his master, who was so bad, and his heart was already full of tears. Woo! What kind of rotten idea did his lord come up with? Asking him to attack the laws of the heaven and earth, wasn't this asking him to court death? He would probably die without an intact body. You also know that the mistress of the dark world is very bad. Suddenly, a voice rang in Mu Li's ears, and he was shocked. Wasn't this the sound of the laws of heaven and earth? What, you want to sow discord? Mu Li instantly raised his vigilance, and then he peeked at his lord, who had a faint smile on his face. He sincerely prayed that he was the only one who heard this. Otherwise, his lord would skin him alive. However, his thoughts were obviously wishful thinking, because the rules of heaven and earth were said in front of everyone. Suddenly, except for the demon, everyone's expression became strange. They couldn't help but look at each other, their eyes filled with doubts. Who said that the Lord is bad? When Mu Li saw this, she lowered her head guiltily, not daring to look into the demon's eyes. However, the demon obviously did not take the words of the rules of heaven and earth seriously. He laughed very lewdly and said, "So what if I'm bad? Schwer loves my bad side. Nauseating. Narcissism." This was the same reaction of everyone present, including the laws of the world. When the laws of heaven and earth saw that his instigation had failed, they left quietly, just like when they came. As soon as the heaven-earth law was gone, the demon directly said to his subordinates behind him, "You idiots, be careful of whatever you're thinking. You have to know that this place has already been dominated by the laws of heaven and earth, so you can't hide your thoughts from it. Besides, that guy is also a famous peeping Tom. So, you'd better be more alert." "Yes." His subordinates replied gloomily. It seemed that they couldn't let their thoughts run wild while they were here. Otherwise, they would be provoked by the shameless laws of the heaven and earth. At the thought of this, everyone couldn't help but shiver. Mu Li immediately retracted his thoughts and didn't dare to complain. Sob. This place was really not safe. Mu Li really wanted to say that he wanted to go home. However, when he saw how excited the people around him were, he couldn't bring himself to say such useless words. I'll stay here for the time being. Mu Li thought helplessly. At this moment, the demon waved his hand and said to his subordinates, "All right. Let's not waste any more time, everyone, get to work." As soon as they heard the word, "start," all of his subordinates immediately took action. Countless types of wood, stones, and forging tools were moved out of their storage rings, and they were quickly piled up into a mountain. Upon seeing this, the laws of heaven and earth that had already disappeared couldn't help but appear again to make their presence known. They asked in a dumbfounded manner, "Mistress of the Dark World, what are you guys doing?" "Of course we're going to build a palace. Otherwise, How are we going to live with so many people? Moreover, with this palace, my subordinates can also stay here with me for a while longer. The demon explained calmly, but after hearing the rules of heaven and earth, he was in a mess. Your sister. It was already a light punishment to say that they were going to set up camp. This was the rhythm of a dove occupying the magpie's nest. Although this was once the birthplace of the mistress of the dark world, that guy's territory was no longer here. This place now completely belonged to him. But now, this despicable man in front of him had come back to the chaotic world to fight for territory with him. This was really something that Uncle could tolerate, but Aunt couldn't. The laws of the heaven and earth felt that if it could even swallow this, then it would be too cowardly, right? The laws of heaven and earth, who didn't want to be bullied like this, immediately roared in anger, Mistress of the dark world, aren't you being too much of a bully? I didn't say anything when you brought your subordinates here, but now, you actually want to build a palace here. Do you still have my existence in your eyes? Do you think I'm easy to bully? After saying these words, the dark purple ball of lightning floating in the chaos began to tremble violently to show its anger. Chapter 28-27, Don't Leave Any Regrets in Life. 1. As it raged, the entire chaotic world trembled. Mu Li and the others were the first to suffer. The weaker ones among them spat out blood. Seeing this, the demon waved his hand and covered his subordinates with his protection. Only then did Mu Li and the others realize that they had saved their lives. Sobs. That kind of existence was indeed not something they could fight against. At this moment, they deeply experienced it. However, they didn't regret coming here. After all, such an opportunity was too rare, especially when they saw their master's magnificent feat of angering the regulations of heaven and earth to the point that smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. It was probably a rare opportunity in their lifetime. It was worth it. He could die in peace. Many loyal subordinates thought to themselves. Under the protection of his master, they also had the opportunity to observe the law of heaven and earth of wrath up close. Unfortunately, no matter how they looked, they could only see the dark purple ball of lightning jumping up and down in front of them, looking extremely excited. At this moment, Mu Li and the others heard their master's indifferent reply, "Are you even human?" It really wasn't he. The regulations of the heaven and earth were ruthlessly choked. It stammered for a long time, but it could not lie with its eyes open and say that it was human. More importantly, lying was a very serious crime for it, so it couldn't just lie. Woo-woo. Bad guy. Scoundrel. Those who bullied the laws of the world were all bad guys. At this moment, the law of heaven and earth, which was originally high and mighty in everyone's eyes, could no longer pretend to be high and mighty, because at this time, his heart and body were surrounded by deep resentment, and Mu Li and the others saw the beautiful dark purple lightning ball in front of them turn dark black. This was your sister. It could actually change color. Mu Li and the others were shocked. It was said that creatures like chameleons existed in all realms. He did not expect that even the laws of heaven and earth had such abilities. Could it be that the laws of heaven and earth were related to chameleons? Everyone couldn't help but let their thoughts run wild again. The laws of heaven and earth that could clearly sense their thoughts roared in anger, "You bastard! You're the chameleons, your entire family are chameleons. Damn it!" It couldn't do anything to the mistress of the dark world, but it could deal with a few small fries. The laws of heaven and earth did not believe in this. One had to know that in the entire chaotic world, the number of people who could bully it could be counted on one finger. A mere life form from the 9 nether prison dared to laugh at it. This was preposterous. When Mu Li and the others heard the cursing of the laws of the heaven and earth, they were completely stunned. They were being spied on again. Sobs. The laws of heaven and earth. How could he do such a shameless thing? Mu Li and the others were quite worried, but the demon did not sympathize with them at all. He had already warned them, but they still let their thoughts run wild. However, since they were his subordinates, the evildoer would not allow others to bully them. Therefore, after his subordinates were scolded, he only smiled and asked the regulations of the heaven and earth, "Little Tian, don't change your target and ignore my existence. Otherwise, I'll be angry." Little Tian. Your sister. It was not called Little Tian. The laws of heaven and earth were enraged. However, the demon did not think much of it and returned to the question, "Little Tian, you still haven't told me, are you even human?" "I'm not, all right." Hearing this, the laws of the heaven and earth roared in anger. The lightning ball that was not much bigger than a palm also trembled even more violently. "It's not like that. Why do you sound so aggrieved? It's as if I've wronged you." The demon said indifferently. "Thanks, you didn't wrong me," the heaven-earth law gritted its teeth and whispered. "Then I'm relieved. By the way, since you're not a human, you naturally don't need such a big place. I should be able to build a palace here, right?" The demon asked with a smile. "Build it. Let's build." The laws of the heaven and earth roared helplessly before disappearing in a fit of anger. After it left, Mu Li was still worried and asked, "My lord, has that fellow left?" "Let's go. Also, it's not called that guy. Please call it Little Tian," the demon cautiously reminded. Mu Li and the others were silent. Could they call him that? According to their senses, someone who was called Little Tian by their master obviously didn't like this title. However, since his lord had said so, they naturally did not dare to not call out. However, Mu Li still asked carefully, "Master, can we build the palace now? Will that Little Tian come out to stop us?" "No, I understand Little Tian. It usually only does this once. If it doesn't succeed, it will naturally give up. However, it should be able to find another way to create trouble for you," the demon replied after thinking carefully about the nature of the laws of heaven and earth. Mu Li and the others were silent again. Could he still continue to build like this? According to his master's words, the rules of heaven and earth would appear again and be obstructed by all means. "Don't be afraid, I'm here." Seeing that his subordinates seemed to be a little frightened by his words, the demon quickly comforted them. "All right." Mu Li and the others nodded when they heard this. There was still his lord. They were not afraid. However, after they started, they realized that it was extremely difficult to build a palace in the chaotic world. First of all, the foundation was a big problem. The reason was that the foundation could not be fixed. The entire foundation was floating in the air and could not be fixed. Although experts would not build houses like ordinary people, who had to lay the foundation in the earth, the house floating in the air was located in the chaotic world where energy was unstable. If the spiritual chi here went berserk, the palace would be crushed into pieces by the furious spiritual chi. Therefore, it would be best if the foundation could be fixed. It couldn't be fixed, and it definitely couldn't be like now, where the foundation was randomly floating in the chaos world. If this continued, it was very likely that the palace that they had worked so hard to build would be gone when they left and came back. Thinking about the consequences, it was really a waste of manpower and money. Mu Li, who felt that no matter how much money he had, he couldn't waste it like this. He immediately reported this problem to his master. When the demon learned about it, he just smiled and said, "Stop your work for now. I'll have a heart-to-heart talk with Xiaotian." After saying that, the demon disappeared, leaving behind a dumbfounded Mu Li. Having a heart-to-heart talk with Xiaotian at this time? "My lord." They were talking about the foundation. "How can you not do your proper work?" In a moment of anxiety, Mu Li secretly felt his stomach churn again. At the same time, the demon found the location of the laws of heaven and earth in the depths of a thick black fog. At this moment, the laws of the world were secretly pleased with themselves. However, when it turned around and saw the demon standing behind it with an inexplicable expression, it was still shocked. "What, feeling guilty?" Upon seeing this, the demon revealed an alluring smile. "What do I have to be guilty about?" Why are you here?" The laws of heaven and earth asked calmly. "I'm here to talk to you," the demon replied. Chapter 28. Don't leave any regrets in life. 2. Do we have anything to talk about? The laws of the heaven and earth were acting dumb. The demon obviously didn't want to waste his breath on the rules of heaven and earth, so he warned them directly, "Do you think I don't know what you're doing? Little Tian, it's impossible for you to stop me from building a palace here, so you'd better not play any tricks. Otherwise, if you anger me, you'll definitely not be able to bear the consequences." What do you want? After hearing the demon's words, the regulations of heaven and earth were a little afraid. However, it still asked, unwilling to give up. "If you dare to stop me, I'll destroy this place," the demon said coldly, his cold eyes shooting out a sinister aura. You can't do this. This is also where you were born, how can you?" The laws of heaven and earth roared in disbelief, and their voices were unusually sharp. It was really frightened by the evil man's ruthlessness. "Why can't I? Although this is still the chaos world, you should know that this place is no different from the divine world or the netherworld. It is a chaos world that cannot breed life, so it is not worthy of its name. The chaotic world at this time was at best a space that could accommodate you. Tell me, what do I not dare to destroy?" The demon laughed evilly. But this is where you were born," the regulations of heaven and earth emphasized in a low voice. "That's why I've come back. I'm going to build a palace here and come back to stay for a while when I'm free. Unfortunately, you don't want me to come back. You even want to occupy everything here for yourself. Tell me, what else can I do besides destroying this place?" the demon said with a helpless expression. The evildoer at this moment was like an unlucky child whose parents' property had been robbed by his brother, and the laws of the world were the bad guys who wanted to monopolize his parents' inheritance. The fight between the two brothers was naturally not like that of ordinary people. The evildoer even wanted to destroy the place as soon as he made his move. Seeing that he was speaking so seriously, those who also understood the rules of heaven and earth were also afraid. They had no choice but to compromise and promise, "I'll agree to let you build the palace." That's a good girl. It would have been better if this had happened earlier. It wouldn't have been a waste of our time. The demon reached out and touched the dark purple ball of lightning as if he was touching the head of the laws of heaven and earth. After touching it, he disappeared. As soon as the demon left, the laws of heaven and earth became extremely sad again. Sob. Why was it so useless? That scoundrel was so scared that he compromised. The regulations of the heaven and earth were very depressed, so much so that they didn't appear for a long time. The demon returned to where Mu Li and the others were and directly told Mu Li, "We can continue with the construction." After Mu Li and the others heard this, they couldn't believe it at first, but they also knew that their lord wouldn't play with them with such a thing, so they began to work with great interest. After the actual construction, they were surprised to find that the foundation could actually be fixed in a certain place. Although it was still not as stable as the real ground, at least he would not float randomly. With this discovery, everyone was even more excited. In less than a month, a grand palace that was exactly the same as the main hall in Joyo City was completed in the chaotic world. In order to bring joy to the gray chaotic world, they chose a festive red color as the main color of the palace. Of course, it was not the bright red, but a rather deep red that gave people a high-end atmosphere. The monster even named the palace Snow Palace in a nauseating manner. Originally, this palace should have been called Love Snow Palace. However, Mu Li and the others felt that it was too mushy and that Len Ruoxue might not like a name like Love Snow Palace. Hence, they mustered up their courage and suggested to their master to remove the word love. Fortunately, the evildoer accepted their suggestion in the end, and they heaved a sigh of relief. Otherwise, they would feel a little uncomfortable if they had to go in and out of the Love Snow Palace every day and even stay there. Thanks after the palace was completed and the name was hung up, Mu Li and the others naturally had to follow the tradition and celebrate. The demons who were in a good mood also let them be. When everything was ready, everyone celebrated in their hearts. However, in the thick fog in the distance, a dark purple lightning bolt flickered with electric sparks. It was in a bad mood. Needless to say, this bolt of lightning was the embodiment of the laws of heaven and earth. Although it had not appeared for a while, its every move was under his control. At this moment, the regulations of the heaven and earth felt depressed and even more desolate as they listened to the bustling noise in the distance. It was so envious and jealous. Although it was the representative of the laws of the world, it had never had the chance to enjoy everything that humans enjoyed. It was only because of the constraints of the laws that it was unable to transform. As the supreme law of the world, it knew everything about humans, including food, clothing, and all kinds of recreations. However, it had no way to experience it personally. At this moment, it truly felt the imbalance in its heart. After all, they were all born from chaos. Although they had different duties, why could the demonic man enjoy delicious food and live in a spacious and gorgeous palace, while he could? He spent his entire life wandering in every corner of the chaos world, exposed to the wind and the sun. Thinking of this, the heaven-earth law's heart was filled with tears. It was not fair. This was too unfair. At this moment, the laws of heaven and earth were extremely resentful, so much so that the demon and the others in the palace could clearly feel the chaos world shaking again. The living room of the main hall began to shake. "My lord, is this an earthquake?" Mu Li couldn't help but ask with a pale face. When the demon heard this, he helplessly rolled his eyes at Mu Li, whose IQ had obviously dropped, and said, "There's no earthquake here. If there's really an earthquake, I'm afraid the entire world will be destroyed." "Then why is it shaking so badly?" "Wu. My lord, I haven't lived long enough. I don't want to die like this." Hearing this, Mu Li's face was full of tears. "Don't worry. With me here, you won't die." Hearing this, the evildoer really wanted to say that it was too embarrassing for him to not know this subordinate. After saying this, Mu Li's face finally calmed down. Then, the demon shouted into the distance, "Xiao Tian, I know you're lonely. Do you want to eat something? Little Tian?" Was Xiao Tian throwing a tantrum again? Mu Li was stunned. Who knew that just as the demon asked this question, the entire chaos world would tremble even more violently? Clearly, little Tian was angry. He was still cursing in his heart, "Your sister. Could it eat it? Could it eat it? Master, I'm afraid little Tian is angry." After a long time, Mu Li couldn't help but remind him in a low voice. "I know." The demon smiled faintly. "Why are you still provoking me when I know you?" Mu Li was speechless and didn't know what to say. This was obviously a love-hate relationship. As soon as he thought of this, the dark purple ball of lightning suddenly appeared in front of him and shook it violently. It roared, "Your sister. Who would love to kill him?" Chapter 28-29, Don't Leave Any Regrets in Life, 3. After saying that, the dark purple thunderbolt ball hit Mu Li's head with all its strength, as if it didn't hate him. It hit him so hard that he saw stars. Mu Li, who was shining with golden light, only had one thought in his mind. He had been scolded and beaten by the laws of heaven and earth. Wu. Little Tian wouldn't use public office to take personal revenge, would he? Mu Li was very worried. His thoughts were naturally seen through by the laws of heaven and earth. Then, the roar of the laws of heaven and earth rang in his ears again, "Your sister, I want to take revenge for a private matter, humph. You're lucky." After roaring, the law of heaven and earth floated in front of the demon again. It glared at him fiercely and disappeared in anger. "AI. I've already warned you not to let your thoughts run wild." Seeing that his subordinate was still in a daze, the evildoer said with a face full of disappointment. "Master," Mu Li touched the swollen bump on his head and looked at his master with tears in his eyes, who was obviously gloating. His heart was full of tears. He was definitely caught in the crossfire. If it wasn't for his lord's words, how could he have let his thoughts run wild? Mu Li was quite worried. He didn't say a word during the celebration, and he became mute. He was really too sad. Why was everyone bullying him? At the same time, the laws of heaven and earth were also very sad. It even felt that they were bullying it. It had finally endured the end of the celebration, but it still couldn't feel happy. Woo! Look at the place where they live, the golden walls are so magnificent and high-end. But what about him? Not only did it not have a fixed residence, but it could only float in the gray space. With such a comparison, its heart felt more and more unbalanced. After thinking for a long time, it finally gathered its courage and appeared in front of the demon. When the demon saw it, he obviously showed a rather surprised expression. Is there something you need? The demon smiled faintly. A little. The regulations of heaven and earth suddenly became awkward and started to circle around the demon. Tell me about it. The demon laughed evilly. Can you give me a room to stay in? The laws of heaven and earth discussed. It naively thought that although it couldn't taste the delicious food, it could at least stay in a room and experience the fun of the human world, right? Otherwise, wouldn't it have lived in vain for so many years? AI. Don't leave any regrets in life. You can, but you can't live here for free. The demon said with a smile. You want to take money? The laws of the heaven and earth asked, already prepared. It had long guessed that this fellow would not let it off for no reason. I don't want money. What's the point of having money to people like us? The demon said directly. Then what do you want? Other than letting you silang ruashua and not going against the laws of heaven and earth, I can agree to anything else. The laws of the heaven and earth stated their bottom line. After so many years, you should have collected a lot of good things, right? Those things aren't of much use to you, so how about you give them to me? The demon clearly knew that this guy would rather not let him see Schwer, so he naturally would not be so insensible as to wait for rejection. More importantly, Schwer was currently in closed-door cultivation. Even if he went to the immortal world, he would probably not be able to see Schwer. Thus, he would naturally not waste this rare opportunity to extort the laws of the world on something that she would not agree to. However, when the regulations of heaven and earth heard the demon's words, they were still stunned. They could not help but say, I did collect some things, but you can't use them. What's the use of them? I can give it to Schwer. So, do you agree? The demon asked calmly. Sure, but I want a fixed residence here. The kind that I can stay whenever I want. The laws of the heaven and earth said. It truly felt that those things were of no use to it. If it could use them to exchange for a room, it would not be a good choice. No problem. There will be a fixed room for you here. You can stay or leave whenever you want. The demon said in a good mood, but he couldn't help but secretly complain in his heart. Where else could he find such a good thing like a butler who could look at a house for him without spending money? Moreover, the person who showed him the house was the famous law of heaven and earth that countless people wanted to curry favor with but could not. Just like that, the two of them, each with their own thoughts, became roommates. After that, Mu Li and the others also learned of this news. When everyone first heard that the lofty laws of the world were about to become their roommates, they were quite shocked and couldn't calm down for a long time. Later, when they finally calmed down, they didn't know how to get along with the existences of the laws of the world. Even after the laws of the world had moved in, they were still in a state of confusion. Sensing everyone's uneasiness, the regulations of heaven and earth only said one sentence, let's get along in harmony. There's no need to treat it as a law of the world. With the other party's words, everyone truly relaxed. Thanks, however, in the beginning, no one dared to be presumptuous at all. Later on, when they saw that the laws of the heaven and earth were not as terrifying and unapproachable as the legends said, they gradually let down their guard. Mu Li, in particular, was practically calling the laws of the heaven and earth his brother, and he even called them Little Tian. At first, when the laws of heaven and earth saw him like this, they were really quite annoyed. In fact, this was not what it meant by getting along. However, after things were obviously developing in an abnormal direction, it suddenly felt that this feeling was quite novel, so gradually, it also showed signs of being assimilated by the muley. When the demon saw that Mu Li had successfully infiltrated the enemy's camp, he privately instructed Mu Li to tell more love stories to the rules of heaven and earth when he was free in order to influence the unromantic guy. After receiving this mission, Mu Li had a headache for a while. Who asked him to be a hierarch-level otaku? Other than following his lord, he had no interest in the opposite sex at all. If you were to tell love stories to the rules of heaven and earth, who also did not understand what love was, wasn't this the same as asking for his life? However, he had no choice but to obey his lord's orders. So, after he was so worried that his hair was about to turn white, he finally forced out a love story. He had even adapted this story based on his lord and Lengruox's matter. After he explained it to the laws of the heaven and earth, the first reaction of the laws of the heaven and earth was to be at a loss. He didn't understand a thing. Later, after Mu Li's many explanations, he finally understood the rules of heaven and earth a little. After understanding it, the biggest sigh of the rules of heaven and earth every day was that love was not easy. It was 100 times more difficult than cultivation. Every time Mu Li heard it say this, she also felt the same way. That's right. So, we should all understand the relationship between his lord and Miss Leng. However, even though they understood, the laws of heaven and earth were still unwilling to let the two of them be together. At least not now. Seeing that the laws of heaven and earth were so stubborn, Mu Li could only sigh helplessly. My lord. I've tried my best. Of course, the demon knew that Mu Li had tried his best. After all, the interaction between Mu Li and the laws of heaven and earth was under his eyes. Naturally, it could not be hidden from him. However, he did not get any results. This fact made him feel deeply conflicted. Although he had thought of fixing the rules of the world more than once before coming here, it was quite difficult to implement. It was because that guy couldn't hit him, and it was useless to scold him. He didn't care about it at all, and he couldn't really destroy this place. So, other than threatening the rules of the world, he had no other way. Later on, he finally had the opportunity to lure the laws of heaven and earth, but he made no progress. Not only that, but it also made the rules of heaven and earth have the habit of listening to stories. Now, that guy pestered Mu Li every day and asked Mu Li to tell him stories on purpose, causing Mu Li to hide here. Looking at Mu Li, who was sitting on the chair carefully and looking scared, the demon helplessly asked, "How long are you going to hide? Do you really think that Xiao Tian doesn't dare to come to me to find you? My lord, save me. I'm out of ideas, there's nothing more to say. Can you find someone else?" Mu Li begged with tears in her eyes. It's not a problem to switch to another person, but you can't keep hiding from it, right? As far as I know, it is the closest to you, so I think it still likes to listen to your stories the most. The demon said after thinking for a while. My lord, save me. Mu Li's face turned pale when he heard that. How? The demon asked with an evil smile. I want to go home. Mu Li said directly. Go home? You want to be a deserter? Or do you think that the laws of heaven and earth won't be able to find you after you return to Jiuyo City? The demon really didn't know what to say about Mu Li's naivety. Sigh. How could he have such a stupid subordinate? Then what should we do? After hearing the demon's words, Mu Li really had no idea. Little Tian would definitely be able to find him. Who asked him to be the law of heaven and earth? Mu Li wanted to cry but had no tears. At this time, the demon looked at Mu Li deeply and said, How about I send you to the divinity? Divine realm? Little Tian can find me there too, right? Mu Li quickly reminded him. Shuar is there, it might not dare to appear. The demon also reminded. This, Mu Li was out of ideas. With her master around, she was not afraid of the rules of heaven and earth. Why would she be afraid of Lengruoxue? Seeing through Mu Li's thoughts, the demon explained, the laws of heaven and earth dare to appear in front of me because they have laws that can restrain me. But Shuar, unless Shuar falls into their hands, it will be difficult for them to restrain me. Then I'll go. Mu Li said with determination. In reality, he was very clear that the reason his lord had arranged for him to head to the divine world was largely related to Leng Ruoxue. In order to be the messenger between his lord and Leng Ruoxue, he had long planned to head to the divine world. After all, he had a contract with his lord, and their relationship was not something that others could compare to. It was only because he had been worried about his lord and was afraid that his lord would take it too hard that he had not been able to go. But now, in order to avoid little Tian, who loved to listen to stories, he had no choice but to go. Chapter 28:30, New Trend, 1. More importantly, even if he were to leave now, he would feel more at ease with his lord, because his lord was no longer as angry as before. His lord was much calmer, and it seemed that he wanted to have a long battle with Xiaotian. Thinking of this, Mu Li carefully said, "My lord, I'm leaving. If you have anything that makes you unhappy, please let me know at any time. Your subordinate will do his best to help you solve your problems." "I know." Mu Li's words made the demon quite speechless. Did he look like such an impulsive and unreliable person? Why would he need this wishy-washy butler to remind him? At this moment, the evildoer felt that the other party was treating him like a 3-year-old child, and this fact made him quite helpless. However, the other party was concerned about him, so he could not blame her. Thus, he could only bear with it. Hearing his master say this, Mu Li was truly relieved. Not long after, the demon personally broke open the void and sent Mu Li away. The moment he broke through the void, the laws of heaven and earth immediately appeared with great vigilance. When it saw that it was not the demon who had left, it finally heaved a sigh of relief. However, when it saw that it was its good friend, Mu Li, who had left, it was still very worried. Sob. The best friend he could get along with was actually going to abandon him. The regulations of the heaven and earth were heartbroken. Seeing this, the demon smiled and comforted, "There is no banquet that doesn't end, just like him and Shuer. Temporary separation is inevitable." After hearing this, the regulations of the heaven and earth were deeply suspicious. Was this guy using public office to take revenge for private matters? However, Mu Li was his subordinate and not under his jurisdiction. He really couldn't interfere. After some thought, the regulations of the heaven and earth carefully suggested, "Mistress Dark, you have so many subordinates, can you give me a few?" "Give you a few? Who do you like?" The demon asked directly, his tone was a little ambiguous. "Mu Li is not bad," the heaven-earth law said with a guilty conscience. He's my right-hand man. If I give him to you, I'll lose a lot." The demon shook his head and refused. "I can use something to exchange for it." The heaven-earth law probed. "That won't do either." The demon still refused. There's no room for discussion. The laws of heaven and earth asked, unwilling to give up. To be honest, Mu Li's importance to me is second only to Shuer's. So, do you think there's any room for discussion? The demon asked with a faint smile. Hearing him say this, how could the laws of heaven and earth not understand? In the next moment, the laws of heaven and earth turned around and left. As he watched the law of heaven and earth leave, the demon summoned his subordinates and instructed them to come into contact with the law of heaven and earth more often. The benefits would naturally be great. When his subordinates heard this, they were instantly excited. From then on, the laws of heaven and earth no longer had the time to be lonely. At the same time, after Leng Ruoxue went into closed-door cultivation, Uncle Long and the others in the God realm had nothing to do other than to develop the demon city. During this period, the Dark Family Alliance would be the most frequent visitors. However, even so, Dongfang Yu and the others rarely showed any respect to the people from the Dark Family Alliance. Bingpa had not even shown his face because he had to accompany his son in his closed-door cultivation. One day, Uncle Long and the others were drinking tea and chatting in the garden as usual. Suddenly, the sky changed color. It was pitch black as if a storm was about to fall at any time. But strangely, Uncle Long and the others looked up at the sky for a long time, but not a single drop of rain fell. At this moment, an incomparably powerful pressure suddenly appeared and pressed down heavily on everyone's hearts. Everyone could not help but feel their hearts sink. Thanks who? Who is this? What a powerful pressure. This sudden pressure made everyone want to kneel down and worship it. More importantly, this pressure gave them a familiar feeling. Could it be the Dark Lord? The people present couldn't help but secretly guess. It's my lord. Ming Ji, who had rushed over after hearing the pressure, said with certainty. The mistress of the dark world is here. Uncle Long and the others couldn't help but be overjoyed when they heard this, and they immediately became excited. If the mistress of the dark world had really returned, then Shuai would definitely be very happy to see him after she came out of seclusion. I don't know, I'm not sure, said Minga as she looked up at the gloomy sky, which looked as if it could split open at any moment. The sky was still gloomy. After waiting for a long time, the dark sky was like a monster that opened its mouth, tearing a hole that was half the width of a person. He continued to wait for a long time. An object suddenly fell from the monster's mouth and fell into the beautiful and clear lake in front of Uncle Long and the others. This scene immediately left everyone dumbfounded. They didn't know what to say. This object definitely wasn't the mistress of the dark world. The mistress of the dark world couldn't have fallen from the sky in such a sorry state. When the thing in the lake stood up in an extremely sorry state and turned around, everyone was once again amazed. This person's style was simply too natural. This person was Mu Li, whom they knew. At this moment, Mu Li's whole body was soaked. There were 2 clusters of seaweed hanging on his shoulders. On his head was a big golden fish that was constantly blowing bubbles. He could also vaguely see 2 huge crab pincers on Mu Li's thighs. Basically, most of the creatures in the lake were here. When Mu Li climbed ashore, everyone found a turtle the size of a millstone lying very steadily on his feet. Hey! Long time no see. Seeing the crowd, Mu Li, who didn't realize how amazing his current appearance was, took the initiative to wave and greet everyone. Long time no see. Seeing that the crowd was still in shock, Uncle Long, who was the first to recover, could only stutter and greet them. After saying that, he quickly lowered his head and laughed secretly. Seeing that everyone present had lowered their heads and only their shoulders were twitching, Mu Li also felt that something was wrong. He asked with an innocent face, "What's wrong with you guys? Why are you so excited to see me?" Yes, we're so excited." Minga couldn't hold it in any longer. As soon as he finished speaking, he held his stomach and laughed wildly. When his laughter reached its limit, he fell to the ground and rolled around. Then why are you laughing? Mu Li asked without shame. Look at your image. The kind Uncle Long reminded. After hearing this, Mu Li lowered his head and looked at it. He exclaimed, "Arg! Oh my God! How could it be like this?" Then, he hurriedly sent the big fish back into the lake, and then kicked the giant turtle into the lake. Finally, he paid attention to the 2 crabs. However, the 2 big crabs were quite difficult to deal with. No matter what Mu Li did, they would not let go of his legs. In the end, Mu Li could only use his hands to break the pincers of the 2 crabs. Chapter 28-31, New Trend, 2, Then, everyone heard a miserable shriek. By the time they looked at Mu Li's hand, it was already bleeding profusely. Uncle Long couldn't stand it anymore, so he shouted at the 2 crabs, "Get back to the lake, or I'll eat you tonight." As soon as he said that, the 2 crabs that were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws at Mu Li immediately crawled down from her feet and dove into the lake, unwilling to show their heads again. Seeing this, Mu Li was extremely sad and angry. He looked at Uncle Long with a face full of resentment and said, "The crabs here are such bullies." Woo-woo, That was because they had been bullied by strangers before, so when they saw a stranger, they couldn't help but clamp down on him first. "Don't worry, they already know you, they won't do it again." Uncle Long smiled evilly and comforted him. In fact, he didn't say that the other party was only acting in self-defense. After all, he was the one who invaded their territory first. However, he also knew that once he said this, Mu Li would be depressed to death. After that, Uncle Long and the others took the initiative to change the topic and asked about Mu Li's purpose in coming here. When they found out that Mu Li had been sent here by the mistress of the dark world, Uncle Long and the others immediately understood. Of course, Mu Li would not tell them that he had come here not only to be the Lord's messenger, but also to avoid the harassment of the laws of heaven and earth. Just like that, Mu Li also settled down in Demon City. From time to time, he would tell his lord about the situation. However, Lin Ruoxue had always been in closed-door cultivation. Hence, he did not send back much information about her. 5 years later, Feng De and the others finally came out of seclusion. Uncle Long and the others were overjoyed to see them. Back then, when they were in seclusion, they had said that they would not come out until they became divine emperors. The first thing he did after he came out of seclusion was naturally to advance. Feng De and the others who were in seclusion had finally fulfilled their promise and advanced to the divine sovereign realm. After the promotion, Uncle Dragon immediately organized a grand celebration to celebrate Demon City's rise in strength. Of course, Uncle Dragon and the others were still the happiest about Demon City's popularity. Although Demon City had been developing rapidly in recent years, many humans and beasts had chosen to seclude themselves and cultivate after realizing that their strength was too low. Whether it was the Luo family, the Leng family, or the Lan family, they were all the same. As a result, the huge Demon City suddenly became deserted. Other than a few godly venerable rank elders like them, there were almost no other idle people. Although the atmosphere in Demon City was comforting, Uncle Dragon and the others did not feel good. Apart from a few old fellows, they did not even have a little kid to play with. This made their lives dull. But now, Feng De and the others had come out of seclusion, which meant that they would have fun again in the future. Therefore, after seeing Feng De and the others, Uncle Long and the others were so excited that tears welled up in their eyes. Feng De and the others were all overwhelmed by the unexpected favor. However, when they found out that their Miss, Cheng Wu, and the others were in seclusion again, Feng De and the rest immediately decided to continue their seclusion. They could not fall behind Cheng Wu and the others too much. Thanks Feng De and the others' decision was very progressive, but when Uncle Long and the other old men who were so bored that they were about to rust heard it, they had a bad feeling. Wu! How could this be? They had been looking forward to the stars and the moon, and finally, someone had come out of seclusion. Who knew that before they could even warm up the person, he would actually go into seclusion again? This kind of result, it really broke their hearts. However, they couldn't stop the young people who wanted to improve, could they? Therefore, Uncle Long and the others sent Feng De and the others away with tears in their eyes. As life went on, Uncle Long and the others were getting more and more bored. In the end, they were so bored that they collectively decided to add some popularity to Demon City. After a careful discussion, they decided to first pick some remote mountains and forests to attack. For a time, the mountains and forests that few people set foot in became important places for Uncle Long and the others to pass time. Not long after, the beasts in the mountains and forests were incorporated by Uncle Dragon and the others, becoming a member of Demon City's beast army. Although some of the beasties were not very willing at the start, they could not afford to offend the powerful human. As such, they could only obediently wait to be captured and follow Uncle Dragon and the others to settle down in Demon City. But after coming here, the beasts really liked this place. Not only was this place safe, but most importantly, the spiritual chi here was extremely rich. It was simply a holy land for beasts. After the beasts settled down, Uncle Long was in a good mood. As a fellow beast, he finally had something to do, and that was to guide the cultivation of these beasts. However, although Uncle Long was happy, Master Ning and the others, as humans, were not. It wasn't that they looked down on Beastie, but when these new members who had just joined saw them, they were like mice that had seen a cat. They ran away so quickly that they couldn't even find a little fellow to have a heart-to-heart talk with. When they told Uncle Long about this, Uncle Long only pouted and said, "Who can you blame? It's all because of you humans. As humans, Master Ning and the others were secretly worried. Although they wanted to refute Uncle Long's words, they found that their refutations were powerless. AI. To the orcs, humans were not their friends. Especially some of the weaker beasts, if they were caught by humans, they would not even have the chance to resist. With this thought in mind, Master Ning and the others could only be lonely. In the end, it was Uncle Long who couldn't stand it anymore and suggested, "Why don't we recruit some small clans from the Divine Realm?" Demon City was currently quite large, and their population was limited. Naturally, they did not need such a large space. Although Demon City was developing well, some of the more remote areas had yet to be fully developed. The main reason for this was the lack of permanent residents. Uncle Long had thought of this for a long time, but due to their high requirements for the personnel stationed in the base, this matter had not been carried out. But now, after Shuer and the others had all gone into seclusion, they truly felt cold and lonely. They also hoped that there would be some new blood to fill in. But Uncle Long's suggestion made Master Ning and the others hesitate again. It wasn't that they didn't think that way, but to be honest, they didn't have the confidence that human families would be on their side. Unless you could sign a contract of never betraying them, which clan in the Divine Realm would be willing to sign a contract with you unless they had no other choice? What? Don't tell me you're not confident. Uncle Long, who could tell what they were thinking, laughed and joked. Chapter 28-32, New Trend, 3, This. I'm confident, but I'm afraid I can't recruit a decent family. Master Ning didn't want to be too embarrassed, so he had to force himself to say it. It doesn't matter if they're decent or not. We don't need super families like the 8 divine regions. The most important thing is that they must be loyal. This is the most important thing. Uncle Long replied with a smile. It's just that I can't guarantee loyalty. Hearing this, Master Ning smiled bitterly to himself. However, Uncle Long obviously didn't want to give Master Ning and the others any more chances to find excuses, so he made the decision. After Mu Li heard this, he also joined in the fun and declared that he was the best at attracting people. When Uncle Long heard this, he waved his hand, and Mu Li became the chief commander of Demon City's recruitment this time. He also handed over the beasts that had been incorporated into the city to him. After that, Demon City sent the news to the Guild of Quests to release it. Not long after, this became the hottest topic in the Divine Realm. The various large and small families enthusiastically participated in Demon City's recruitment with various objectives. First of all, during the registration period, all the families were eager to sign up. In just 3 days, the number of families who had signed up had exceeded the expectations of Uncle Long and the others. When Uncle Long and the others saw the name list of the families who had signed up, their faces immediately darkened. Your sister. At least half of them were fake reviewers, and the other half were probably up to no good. Holding the list, Uncle Long glanced at Master Ning and asked, "What do the Lu and Yin families mean by this? Are you here to cause trouble? You bastard." 2 of the 8 divine domains had actually signed up. Could it be that these 2 great families were planning to give up their current territories and settle in Demon City? He would not believe such a thing even if he was beaten to death. I don't think they would dare to cause trouble. I guess they want to set up a branch in Demon City. Master Ning's voice became softer and softer, and his face became even more red. Set up a branch? So that he could report the situation in Demon City back. That's wonderful thinking. Uncle Long snorted. Although they had plans to recruit people, they only wanted to recruit young people without any foundation. Such families were the easiest to train and would cling to them. But the 8 great divine regions? Hee hee. Forget it. They didn't need disobedient guys. Seeing that Uncle Long was obviously unhappy, Master Ning's heart trembled as he tried to save him. Why don't I go talk to the 2 family heads and ask them to withdraw their registration? No need. It's also because we didn't think it through in the beginning and didn't make it clear on the announcement that we would only recruit small families. If we change our words now, it will definitely cause dissatisfaction among most families. So, let's just leave it at that. It's useless even if they sign up. Uncle Long said after thinking for a while. The registration was only the first step. There were still many tests and tests to follow. Therefore, Uncle Long was not worried that those families with ulterior motives would sneak in. Now, it was a good opportunity to see the reactions of those families. That's true, isn't it up to us to decide who to let in? Master Ning was relieved to hear that. Otherwise, he was really afraid that Uncle Long would get angry. The registration period lasted for a month, and on the last day of the registration deadline, it triggered another craze for registration. After some calculations, the number of clans that had registered actually exceeded 3/4 of all the clans in the Divine Realm. Most of the families that didn't sign up were on good terms with Demon City. They knew that Demon City's recruitment wouldn't be so simple, so they didn't want to get involved. After the registration, it was time for the test and examination. All the major families were aware of this when they first registered. Hence, after receiving the invitation from Demon City, all the families sent their family elders to attend the event. Upon arriving in Demon City, the families that had never visited the city were astonished and curious about the city. In order to arrange their living arrangements, Mu Li had specially arranged for Beastie to follow them closely. Of course, it was mainly to guide them, as there were some places in Demon City that they couldn't set foot in. Mu Li had also specially selected some beautiful, cute, and likable beasts for them. But even so, some families still protested and even complained to Uncle Long and the others. There were a total of 5 parties who protested. These 5 families weren't small and were quite famous in the immortal realm. Therefore, after Uncle Long and the others received their complaints, they arranged for the matter to be handled in public to show their caution. Thanks Mu Li and some of the beasts were naturally included as the victims. Moreover, Uncle Long had specially sent people to invite representatives from other families to listen, euphemistically calling it fair and just. Uncle Long personally took charge of the complaint. From the beginning, he arranged a seat for Mu Li. As for the representatives of the 5 families, they all stood. Such a sharp contrast naturally caused the 5 families to be dissatisfied. Some families immediately protested against Uncle Long's unfairness. Seeing this, Uncle Long smiled and asked, "How am I being unfair? We're the guests and the party making the complaint, but why are we all standing while he's sitting? Isn't he your Demon City's butler? Humph. What right does a servant have to sit in front of us?" A certain clan's representative said disdainfully. Hearing this, Uncle Long sighed and then looked at Mu Li with hidden bitterness. To be honest, in terms of seniority, Mu Li was even above him. It was based on status. Mu Li was the confidant of the mistress of the dark world, and he couldn't be compared to him. Therefore, he didn't dare to show a trace of disrespect to Mu Li, but this person in front of him. Could he call the other party disgusting? Uncle Long truly admired the other party's courage. However, seeing that Mu Li didn't seem to be angry, he was happy not to expose Mu Li's identity. Uncle Long glanced sympathetically at a certain someone, whose face was red with anger. He said, "You're mistaken. He isn't our Demon City's butler, nor is he a servant. Just like you, he is a guest of our Demon City." Uncle Long's words stopped there. Whether the other party could understand or not was not within the scope of his concern. The man obviously didn't believe him. He looked at Uncle Long suspiciously and said, "How is that possible? If he's not a resident of Demon City, what right does he have to manage your city's affairs?" The person who spoke had a hint of anger in his voice, and his tone was not very good. Uncle Long was quite patient and asked, "I authorized it to him. Why, I can't. Or do I need your permission?" "Ah." The man didn't dare to say anything after being questioned by Uncle Long. Who was Uncle Long? Uncle Long was no longer the low-key Uncle Long that no one knew about. In addition, Uncle Long was extremely powerful, so he did not dare to talk back to him. Uncle Long continued, "I know what you're thinking. You just think that letting Beastie follow you will lower your class. In fact, our Beastie even thinks that you're low class. Furthermore, you want to be served. No. The people in our family are all in closed-door cultivation. At present, only Master Ning and a few others are idle. Who among you is qualified to have them serve you? Just say the word, and I'll arrange it. As for me, don't even think about it, because I'm also a beastie. Although Uncle Long's tone was very light, everyone present could feel a trace of disdain in his words, as well as a faint anger. More importantly, Uncle Long's words made everyone present quite horrified. Fuck. Who dared to let Master Ning and the others serve them? Not to mention their status, no one would dare to order them around with their strength. Wasn't this courting death? At this moment, no one dared to look down on those beastie who were putting on an aggrieved expression. In fact, some people even wanted to worship these beastie like they were their ancestors. This included the 5 families that had complained. At this moment, they were filled with regret. Fuck. Who dared to look down on beastie? Father, exterminate them all. At this time, a childlike voice suddenly rang in everyone's ears, instantly making everyone's hearts tremble. Who was this? His tone was really big. He actually wanted to exterminate them all. The crowd couldn't help but mutter to themselves. Uncle Long and the others who heard this couldn't help but twitch their lips, and they were all speechless. Needless to say, it was definitely Bing Yao who had come out of seclusion. Because other than it, there was no one else who could call him father with such confidence. AI. Who asked him to have a good father? Then, Ice Spirit appeared with the chubbier Ice Phoenix. Seeing the father and son, Uncle Long and the others were quite calm, but the people present couldn't calm down no matter what. Someone even couldn't help but exclaim, Qilin. Upon hearing this, many people wanted to kneel down. Your sister. Aside from the dragons, phoenixes, and white tigers, Demon City had even summoned a Qilin. How could this be? Everyone burst into tears. But even so, Bing Yao had no intention of letting them go. He grinned and said, Who was looking down on Beastie just now? Come out and let me see. I'll have my father send you on your way. Its father, wasn't that the old Qilin? The one that was holding it? Everyone looked at the ice spirit in confusion. They couldn't tell what the ice spirit was, but they didn't dare to get angry because of what Bing Yao said. Who asked him to have a good background? The Qilin clan could not be provoked. When Uncle Long and the others heard Bing Yao's arrogant and domineering words, they could only sigh. It was indeed different to have a good father. Bing Yao, this originally cute little fellow, was becoming more and more violent. However, Ice Spirit admired the violent nature of the Ice Phoenix. As his Ice Spirit bloodline, this was how it should be. It could be said that Bing Yao's confidence was related to Bing Pio's unconditional pampering. But fortunately, Bing Yao had always been biased and only knew how to bully outsiders. Therefore, Len Ruoxue and the others were willing to pamper it like Bing Pa did. Because of how Len Ruoxue and the others treated their son, Ice Spirit would be biased. Now, he was going to stand up for his son again. Chapter 2833, Count me in. 1, that's right, who's looking down on Beastie? And he wants all the human supreme gods here to serve him. Ice Spirit said on purpose. In fact, he and Bing Yao had come out earlier than this dispute, but the father and son didn't plan to show themselves directly, but watched the show in the dark. Now. Naturally, it was because his son had seen enough of the show and was planning to interfere. As a father, he had to support his son in whatever he wanted to do. In addition, as a top-notch expert among the magical beasts, he truly felt that these humans in front of him needed to be taught a lesson. Fuck. They were just a few puny human ants, why did they have to be so nosy? As an expert, Bing Pa naturally respected experts, especially Uncle Long and Master Ning. They might not be as senior as him, but they were experts and deserved his respect. How could Ice Spirit be in a good mood when she was questioned by a few pieces of trash? When he was in a bad mood, it meant that someone was going to be unlucky today. As for who would be the unlucky one, it was self-evident. All the family representatives subconsciously kept their distance from the 5 birds after hearing Ice Spirit's words. Oh my god. This Chilean race expert had better not count them as those idiots. They definitely did not look down on any beastie, nor did they dare to look down on any beastie. Seeing their reactions, Ice Spirit looked down on them even more. He could not understand why Demon City wanted to absorb this trash. All of them were not presentable. At the thought of this, he glanced at Uncle Long in confusion and displeasure. Instantly, Uncle Long's nerves tightened. Uncle Long didn't know what Senior Ice Soul meant by that glance. However, he could also see that the other party was somewhat dissatisfied. At this moment, Uncle Long heard one of the 5 birds speaking up with a slightly choked voice, "Senior, we didn't ask for the human supreme god to serve us." Sob. Even if you're strong, you can't wrong people like this, okay? A certain someone was quite worried, but he didn't dare to argue too fiercely with the other party, so he could only speak in an aggrieved manner. After Ice Spirit heard his words, she said indifferently, "Did I hear you wrong? You want the hierarch of the beast race to serve you? What do you think of me?" Ice Spirit paused and asked. At this moment, the representatives of the 5 families present wanted to kneel down in front of Ice Soul. His words had clearly told them that he was also a reverent god. To a certain extent, the hierarch of the beast race was even more powerful than the hierarch of the human race. The representatives of the 5 clans wanted to cry, but no tears came out. They looked at each other in dismay, not knowing what to do. On the other hand, Uncle Long laughed in his heart after hearing what Ice Soul said. "Ha ha ha. I didn't expect Senior Ice Soul to make a joke. Count me in." Suddenly, another gentle voice rang out. Everyone turned their heads in unison and looked in the direction of the voice, only to see an extremely handsome and gentle young man. Who is this? No one present could tell the young man's strength. As soon as Uncle Long saw this person, the corners of his mouth twitched violently, and his forehead was full of black lines. Thanks, the person who spoke was the reclusive and introverted Shui Mo. When Uncle Long heard Shui Mo's words, he couldn't understand why he would suddenly leave the room. One must know that Shui Mo had 2 hobbies in his life, formations and food. Before Shui went into seclusion, she gave him many peerless formations for him to slowly comprehend. She also promised that if there was anything that the other party could not figure out, the 2 of them would think of a solution together after she came out of seclusion. With Shui's words, Shui Mo didn't even leave the room. They were also the ones who sent people into other people's rooms in different ways every day. They had not seen Shui Mo for a few years. Therefore, when they saw him for the first time, Uncle Long and the others were quite surprised and very puzzled. Why did this top otaku leave his room? There was no sign of this at all. Now that he had said something so out of character, how could they not be frightened? Shui Mo from the Chilean race. Seeing the confusion on everyone's faces, Shui Mo introduced himself. When everyone heard that, it was indeed another beast that they couldn't afford to offend. And he was from the Chilean race. Sobs. What's wrong with this world? Why did the Chilean race, which was usually not seen, appear in groups today? Just as everyone was complaining, Shui Mo added with a smile, "I'm also a hierarch and I know how to use formations. I should meet your requirements, ancestor. Don't scare them like this. They were cowards." Everyone's heart ached. What was going on? The counterattack of the hierarch of the beast race? He couldn't afford to offend any of them. It was wrong. It should be said that none of Demon City's residents could be provoked. Seeing that everyone was so scared that their faces turned pale and they didn't dare to say a word, Uncle Long couldn't help but add fuel to the fire. Since the 2 seniors of the Chilean clan have taken the initiative to ask for a job, count me in. Those who don't mind my service, please come forward to register, first come, first served. Everyone burst into tears. At this time, no words could express the grief and indignation in their hearts. These reverent god-level cultivators were really bullies. After waiting for a long time, Uncle Long saw that no one had come forward. He couldn't help but have a trace of anger on his face as he roared, "What are you guys trying to do? You're the ones who are dissatisfied with the ordinary beastie's attendance. Now that we're going to personally attend to them, why aren't you all coming forward to register? Do we really have to invite him personally? You can't do this. Everyone's expression was quite ugly, and some of the more timid ones couldn't help but cry. The sound of soft sobs drifted around. Seeing this, Uncle Long's anger grew. He raised his voice and continued to shout, "What's wrong? Are you guys feeling aggrieved? Aren't you the ones who are finding trouble with us? Now that I've solved your problem, you're crying like we're bullying you. That's right. We should be the ones feeling wronged, right?" At this time, Mu Li calmly interjected. Then, he stood up and walked to the front of the 5 outstanding birds. He patted their shoulders and sized them up. Then, he said, "You guys are quite bold. You dare to despise me?" "No, I don't dare." One of them quickly tried to please him. At this moment, they could deeply feel the dark aura on Mu Li's body. This aura made them feel an unprecedented fear. At the same time, it also made them regret. Why did they have to be the first ones to stand out? Sobs. In fact, the 5 guilds weren't the only ones who had objections to Demon City's arrangements. But now, this demon-like man had his eyes on only the 5 families. Unlucky. He was really unlucky. Why did they think that this man was easy to bully? Now, he had kicked a big steel plate.